This is Mimic. This is 5-time the world's heavyweight champion, the Scrap Daddy himself, Scrap Iron Adam Pierce.
This is Brian Alvarez, and you are listening to Wrestle Radio Australia.
Welcome to the show, folks. My name is Josh Armour, and thanks very much for downloading Wrestle Radio Australia. This is our first episode.
Oh, yeah! G'day, this is Big Brody Marshall.
This is Brian Alvarez.
This is Dean Brady of the Millennials.
This is the Jurassic Punk Sid Parker.
How many of you guys have heard the term kayfabe?
Hello, doggers. This is Jay Hunter from OSW Review.
This is Mac Grim Basso.
This is the loosest in Australian wrestling, Adam Brooks.
This is Scrap Iron Adam Pierce, and you are locked in
to Wrestle Radio Australia.
Game, I in the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke, in my face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, trying like country muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best to get in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you ain't down with that, then I got two is what you suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, open up the club. Let's be busy 23, got me feeling way too sweet.
Hey guys, Tony Schiavone here, making chicken salad. That's sure gonna put some butts in seats.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. Put a square peg in a round hole, just never seems to fit. And you
This is Bianca Belair.
Hey, this is Kevin Owens.
Hey, it's Seth freaking Rollins.
It is the man, Becky Lynch.
It's Rhea Ripley here, and you're listening to Wrestle Radio Australia.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast. This is Wrestle Radio Australia. This is Making Chicken Salad. I think you'll notice that I don't have Jeff and Lachlan with me. Look, the tribunal looked back on Jeff's comment on Lachlan's comments about Cody being a heel, and he's serving a suspension because of it. Jeff, through popular demand, is not on tonight as well. But I do have somebody who, although he has a terrible taste in rugby league teams, he has great taste in wrestling. Nick Galea, my friend, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. We've been talking about this for a while now, so looks like the planets are finally aligned. And let's talk about something that I waffle on about a lot, which is Mayhem Pro. Put some of the chats that we have there. We waffle back and forth, so we can probably do it in public.
Well, that's right, mate. Because I know for a long time you've followed Aussie wrestling for a long time, and you'd also had your own little blog when you'd done reviews of shows and sort of like that. And it was always sort of stuff that I remember. I gave you shit once ago. Mate, it was a great review, but fuck, it was long. But it was one of those things where you have a different point of view to wrestling to a lot of other people, myself included, which is great. And that's stuff that unless people actually know me, they don't realize that I love that. I love people with different points of view because I like debating about that, because it's the only way you learn. The only way you learn about other things is by listening to other people's opinions. I know that sounds really weird when you're talking about that with wrestling, because wrestling fans aren't really generally like that, but
like a lot of the stuff that I write, obviously, is very long-winded.
It's good. That's just me being an asshole.
The old Rockstar Ingwe Malmsteen, there's a famous clip of him saying, "How can things be less? How can less be more? That doesn't make sense. More is more." It's like I always like the long form sort of idea, and it's a lot of the stuff that I put out, whether it's on Twitter or stuff like that. If people were ever familiar with an old website called Death Valley Driver, there was a really great wrestling writer, a guy named Dean Rasmussen, who actually passed away about 6 months ago. And he would write about whatever he's watching. And I remember reading that when I was 18, 19, so a long time ago, when I was getting into tape trading and stuff like that. And so my thing on that was always to try and sell the idea of not just what just a result, or hey, I thought this was good, or hey, I thought this was bad, but I like to try and sort of get the idea of how you and I have very different opinions, but you can look at that instead of going, okay, he's got a different opinion. You can also look and go, okay, he might have a different opinion, but that's also why. Which is to me, that the whole bullshit of, you know, smart marks and stuff like that, which I obviously am, but like it's the tribalism of wrestling fans are like, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. It's like, well, to me, the joy of it has always been like finding out about stuff that's different and also being challenged on my opinions. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You think I'm like I never professed to. I'm just a bloke with a keyboard with a broken computer as the screen gives away and an opinion. So
yeah, it's not like it's not the thing where like it's not like you're like I don't think that it's like you're wrong. I think you're wrong, but this is why I think you're wrong. Yeah. Whereas a lot of times people don't do that. They just go, you're wrong. Well, why am I wrong? Because you don't have the same opinion as me, so you're wrong. No, well, no. Let's talk about this. And that's what I like about you. That's why you and I have gone back and forth in the DMs talking about sort of stuff like that with things, and it's always a great conversation. So and I've been on you like just quietly. I've been on him for a long time, going, you should come on sometime and talk. And he's always been very reticent in doing it, and like. It wasn't too long ago he messaged me going, you know what, if you need anyone anytime and I've watched the show, let me know and I'll come on. And I was like, okay, as soon as I get a fucking chance, I'm going to make sure I can get him on. So I was really lucky that I noticed in passing that you'd been to this show that we're going to review right now. And so you might have watched the YouTube version of it, but you went and saw the actual thing live, which is a totally different experience to the one I've had, which is going to be great for talking about the show. So, the show it's Mayhem Pro's MayhemMania. Is this virtually their WrestleMania, or is it just the name? Because I know Josh likes doing that.
Josh loves his he loves his 90s references. Lots of WCW references in there, which he's a man after my own heart, because I'm a WCW guy. I think the mindset of the Mayhem guys, I think, is because they do non-taped shows at the Relentless School of Pro Wrestling in Melton, which is probably about 20 minutes closer to the city than Bacchus Marsh is. And then they go with the old WWF mindset of like the big 4 or big 5 shows a year that they build up to. So, I think this show, like their 2 big shows they had in the last 12 months was MayhemMania, which they did last year as well. And they also did the Relentless Rumble, which I think was in about September last year as well.
Okay.
So yeah, they do like to make these shows feel like quite a big deal.
And that's the one thing I've noticed about like watching the YouTube. It's not so much a gripe, but my one sort of like criticism, if you will, is that like the presentation is really good, the camera work is really good, the production is really good. I kind of just want commentary to flesh out to flesh out the characters, to flesh out the gimmicks, especially when, like you said, they do a big 4.
Yes.
So it's not like if I'm here in Brisbane, I can follow what's been going on for these shows in between. So if you've got a commentary track where you go, okay, this is like sketch, he has been away for a while, he's back tonight, blah, blah, blah. It just gives the guys at home and people, because let's face it, YouTube isn't just Australia, it's worldwide. It gives people everywhere an idea of who this person is, and sort of helps the guys, especially because Mayhem Pro started off pretty much, all these shows started off as a way to get their students on shows, 100%. And it's sort of like, it's grown from that now. So it's a good way for the students to get their gimmicks across with help of the commentators. But it's also just like it's good. It's better for the home viewing. Like if you're going to a live show, live commentary, it's a bit nah. But if you're at home, you sort of want the same sort of presentation that you get when you watch WWE or AEW or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously you can't reach it, but to get as close as possible. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, especially when they have like on the shows themselves, it looks like that they have 2 ring announcers, so they can be doing the commentary on the side, surely.
And Shane Hero, obviously being a former wrestler and was around for has been around Melbourne wrestling for the best part of 20 years.
Yes,
he's quite a knowledgeable guy as well. So yes, 100%. I think Shane used to do commentary for Warzone Wrestling as well.
Yes,
which is
back
on
in
the
the
other
day.
side of the city as well. Yes, so yeah, he's been around a long time, and he's a very knowledgeable guy, very well spoken guy as well.
Yeah, I think I met him on a Ballarat Pro show.
Probably, actually, yeah, he might have actually still been wrestling on the
it was.
around that time.
It might have been their last one they did. I remember I'd managed Matt and Cree Basso against Mad Dog and Cremator.
Yep, I was at that show because I was visiting family, so I came down from Sydney. I'd come down to visit family, and all I remember on that night was Adam Pearce nearly getting into a fight with someone in the crowd, and it was the coldest night I can ever remember in my life.
Yes, that was the reason why when we went to StarCast, you always saw me I had a hoodie, I had a jacket, because I remember that night bitterly. It's bitterly etched in my memory how fucking cold that place was.
Yep. And I love Ballarat, but like even on the Saturday at StarCast, I went wandering around the city. I'm like, I forgot how much I actually love this city, but Jesus,
it's a beautiful old town. It reminds me a lot of where we run for Wide Bay Pro up at Maryborough. Maryborough is the same. It's like they've got a lot of old buildings. It's really beautiful, that place.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like, if anyone who follows me on socials will tell, like, one of the things that comes up a lot is I'm a sucker for country Australia. So, so I love that part of I love getting out of the cities if I can, so.
Yeah, well, I was born in Sydney, but from like 5 till 13, I grew up in a small country town called Wingham in New South Wales.
Yep, so, up near Newcastle way.
Yeah. So I'm very much a country boy. When I hated that I had to move to Adelaide, I hated it because I was country through and through.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, enough of that.
You're in Sydney long enough to get the curse of being a Parramatta Eel supporter.
Unfortunately, I had no choice in that matter, mate. That was thrust upon me by my family.
Yep.
That was my granddad coached Ray Price in rugby union, so that meant that my family followed Para. That was it.
Yeah, my dad played juniors for Para as well, so they were me, mum, and dad's team. So
yeah, it's funny enough that we were watching last week's game. And my wife goes, "Why do you watch this when you get so angry at it?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, but I can't not watch it."
the joke we had, obviously, when my dad passed recently, so Dad was cremated wearing, we got him an 86 jersey because his old one was too big for him. So we went to the grand final. I was 4, and the joke in our family was always that they'll never win another one in Dad's lifetime. So, and it's and then I made the joke of like, because of the week after he passed, they got up against Manly, and then they were like, oh yeah, that's good. And then they were just back to being Parramatta again. I'm like, the new boss was the same as the old boss.
Yeah, I remember when my dad was alive, he bought this Peter Sterling testimonial port.
Yep.
And he was like, "We're going to drink this when Parramatta wins their next premiership." And I remember saying to Dad, "Does port ever get out of date? Because, you know." Anyway, we should talk about Mayhem Pro because otherwise it's just a sad Parramatta podcast. And God knows there's probably a lot of them floating around at the moment. Anyway, this show opened up with a King of Colac title match, Billy Riot with Jake Navarro against Sketch. What did you think about this match, mate?
I really enjoyed this match. So I quite like King of Colac as a little promotion. So King Colac is a company that runs out in Western Victoria. They run like probably 2 or 3 shows a year, which is Sketch's promotion. They run pretty much like Wide Bay, little town hall, very old school, very great little company. Sketch is a guy I think is quite underrated, and I know he had some pretty serious medical stuff, so I think this was actually his first match back. And I thought this was a really fun, cruiserweight style match. I really like Billy Wright. I think he's obscenely talented. He needs a better name, but because every time I think of Riot, I think of Riot City. But like, he's really good on the basis. Like from the very first time I saw him, he's got that knack of he plays to the cheap seats. He listens to what the crowd's saying and he reacts. And like him and Navarra, like Navarra's been around for years, and they've got really good chemistry and they play off each other really well, being old-fashioned. And Sketch is just a really good like some guys in Melbourne used to use this term derogatorily about other promotions, but to me, Sketch is like a TV wrestler. Like he carries himself, and he runs to that very TV style format, like very traditional, like US style wrestling. Like another good example of that is Daniel Swagger from PCW. Very, very. So if somebody's come in they've only watched WWE, Sketch is a guy that is instantly connectable. Where I think some of the guys that like they love their indie wrestling and stuff like that. That if you're running a family show to a family crowd, some of the stuff you're doing might go over people's heads. Like Sketch is a guy who is really, really good at. Doesn't always do a lot. But what he does looks good, and like, yeah, just a really solid like opening match.
Yeah, I think like my biggest compliment for like Mayhem Pro is that it's very much like it's very digestible wrestling. Like there's not a lot of very indie stuff on it. There's a little bit of mix of it, but it's mostly the stuff that you're used to seeing, and it's good. Like none of it's bad because they're all trained. That's the one thing I noticed over this whole show is that everyone's trained really well. Their basics are down. There's no one who really looks like, oh, why he's there too early. Because that's unfortunately that's my curse is that I'm like, well, that guy's green. He needs work there.
It's also the thing as well. Like there is indie elements there. Like you got one of their trainers, like Sid, spent years in the UK and doing all that sort of thing, and he's like a student of every style of wrestling. But then you've got guys like Phil and JXT and Jake training who are very traditional. Obviously, JXT spending time in GCW as well. So it's the indie. It has the indie influence, but it's not like so full on. And I think that's happened. I think that's Australian wrestling in general is heading in that direction, where for a while I think it was the pendulum would either be it was very family friendly and hokey, or it was so indie that it was like almost designed for the gatekeepers.
Yeah. I like to think of it as like smart indie. They use the indie spots in smart places, not just overuse them, which is smart, I guess. Billy Wright's cool. I hate that he wrestles in jeans. It's like a bugbear of mine. I was like, dude, just get some gear. You can get gear. Everyone can get gear. It's nowadays it's easy to get gear. Like you saying that it's Sketch's first match back, you think after injury, that makes sense because he did look a bit on the rusty side for it. I didn't overly like this match because it was very clunky in spots. Yes. And I think it ended early too because there was a really bad bump off one of the moves. I can't remember what the move was off the top of my head.
I remember watching it. They're like, oh, geez, that was a
and it ended really quickly, sort of out of nowhere. Not long after that, and Navarro really did nothing ringside. So I imagine that there probably was something during this match where he was supposed to get in and do a little bit of like chicanery and. Yeah. But just like watching, I'm like, that he got knocked silly, and they've ended this really quickly.
I like the thing. I guess from a live perspective, so I only watched a little bit of the show back on YouTube. From a live perspective, the crowd was really up for it as well.
Yes.
So
they were.
Like, I think they kind of it did look a little bit off in parts, but like I think the crowd interaction covered for a lot of that.
Yeah, and like the crowd were great this whole show, which that's a great thing to see. When there's nothing worse when you can see that there's people in the crowd, but you're not really hearing anything, noise. It's like, come on, guys, fucking these guys are working here. Give them something.
well, one of the things with Mayhem, just to go off topic for a second, is like where they run in Bacchus Marsh. So Bacchus Marsh is technically in Melbourne city limits, but it's as regional gets. Like it's basically like if you go down the main street, it's like farming supplies and stuff like that. So and like there's a bit more suburban parts, but a lot of it is very very rural. A lot of their audience, they have, you know, regulars like people like myself and a few others who will go to these shows, but a lot of their audience is just people from the surrounding suburb, and they just concentrate on their local area, and they play to the people who come to their shows. Like they don't overreach, they don't go, you know, they might put a little bit here, like the show that you guys reviewed in the past where they did Sid and Erica as the main event, and that was pushing the limits a little bit more, but they stick within what, like they've built a steady audience in their area, and they kind of stick to what that audience likes, and the audience responds.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great what they're doing. Like I talked to Phil at Starcast about it, and like I noted that from their first show, it was very much like all of JXT's mates.
Yes.
And then sort of like they just grew from that now to the point where that because they're mates and they'll support you the first couple of shows, but generally they'll fall off, and they've fallen off, but other people have come in their place. And these are the guys that keep coming back, and they're the ones that you want to keep coming back. And it looks like they're doing a great job of bringing them back time after time, which is always good to see.
100%.
So after that, we had the Mayhem Mosh Pit. This was Brocky Balboa, Nate Hunter, Blake Malik, Killian Bates, Elaine Hope, and Johari in a 6-person scramble. I think Nate Hunter was the absolute standout in this. I love this guy. I think he has a massive future. There was a point there during it when I was watching it, I nearly messaged Rocky and going, "Have you heard of this guy?" Because he's someone I could see fitting in that MCW sort of thing, because he's got the thing that he works a crowd, and he can also work and he works a crowd, and he looks good, and he seems to be putting everything together, which is great to see.
So the big thing from the first time I saw him, stuff he's got like less than 10 matches, I think. He reminds me a lot of Sam Osborne from Sydney. As in that sort of, like, obviously his gimmick is that he's an athlete, but like you can tell, okay, this guy is an athlete. The way he carries himself, like his movement, his presentation, like the fact that he uses the Bulls intro music for his entrance music, like he's going for a very set mind, like very, very focused sort of character. Like that very traditional jock, like almost American influence jock character, and yeah, I think he's great. I think everyone in this match is like there's people who are works in progress. As well, I also really, really highly rank Johari.
Yes, that was another one I said was a standout.
Yeah, he's a guy who just gets better every show. Like I know he's traveling a lot with Sid and Erica doing the whole prehistoric death cult thing. Like they're doing a lot of stuff in Adelaide at the moment for ACW. He's just a guy who's like, he's got something, and he's like, you know, he's part of the way there. Like a lot of these, well, actually most of these guys, they're all works in progress. I think he's one that's because obviously it's a training school. Like it's a training school. So some of these guys are throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. But I think he's a guy that he's got like, you know, 2/3 of the way there. He's just missing, like he just needs that one little piece, which will come with time, I'm assuming, where it brings it all together.
Yeah, there were like those two, like Hunter was good, Johari was good. I think like Elaine Hope was good, but there were spots where she didn't know whether she was a heel or a face in it.
Yes.
She's like, she'd do something in the crowd would cheer, and then she'd do a heel taunt. I'm like, mate, just like pump the crowd up and you're there. You don't need to do the heel stuff.
An interesting one. Welchie's just put a comment on there. So Welchie had made a suggestion that every woman in Australian wrestling seems to be like the bitchy or the overly flashy or something like that. And his suggestion was always that Elaine's character, being she's got the footy player character, is the scrappy underdog, like the girl next door sort of mindset, because nobody's really doing that at least in Melbourne anyway. I'm not sure. Well, I guess like it's on a much bigger scale as what worked for Cherry Stevens in Sydney.
Yeah.
That relatable character that's not, like not everybody's going to be not everyone can relate to the Lena Cross or the, or the Jess Troy, that like, the incredible athlete or the incredibly, the scientific wrestling machine sort of character, but the character who's like the scrappy underdog. I think that connects with a lot of people too, and I think.
I think that's what threw me off about it, because there was points where she was just like doing a sort of like the face, and I'm like, that's not you. Don't do that. You were doing so well.
But again, and she did really well at Ballarat, I thought, as well in that match too.
Yeah, everything in this she hit clean, which was really good. Like, that was literally my only like critique, was like, you didn't need to do that. If you just went like this to the crowd, you would have got the pops that you needed. You wouldn't have to do this other stuff. But that literally that was and Brocky needs to either lose the shirt or just get some gear to hide it, or get a shirt that matches your gear.
Yep.
It's just weird. It's off-putting when you've got just like a blue shorts and then a black t-shirt.
It's a bit, like it is a bit cheap heat, especially being his character being a boxer as well. Like, boxers don't wear shirts, so
no, he could wear the singlet though. The boxers wear those fucking those blue singlets. Yeah.
I think the thing I do like about Brocky is obviously he comes out and he's got the stool and he's got the mouth guard and he's all but then everything, the way he wrestles is obviously so cheap of him. He's obviously, the character thinks obviously not, which I think is
something. Yeah.
And like he had a match at one of the student shows with JXT where it was basically they did a comedy match and a lot of it was based around like, come on, take your shirt off. Oh, I don't want to. I like back and forth, and it was like, again, for that audience was very funny. I think it's like, especially the fact as well, like the dude's in shape as well. I'm like, like guys who wear shirts usually are the ones that aren't in shape. So
this is why I wear butchers. This is a complete reason why.
You look at the shoulders and the arms, but your covers and your gut. Yep.
That's exactly right. I got the spread. That, and I think, I don't know how experienced Killian Bates is, but
I think he's had like three or four matches, I think.
Yeah, because he needs to get gear as well. Because like Under Armour shorts, that's like
it's a bit cheap. And obviously the last person.
And I know these are little things that you're like, oh, you've been a bit. It's just like constructive things. It just ups their game.
On the flip side of someone the opposite, obviously a person who's getting some opportunities elsewhere, Blake Malik.
Yes.
From the moment he debuted, when he came out of MCW Academy a few years ago, he's always looked the part. Like, he's somebody that like, and even in this match, I noticed that like the time that he's spending, the stuff that he's doing already and Rapid, like that's starting to rub off a bit as well. And I think, like again, like when we're talking like works in progress, like the dude's got obscene levels of upside. It's just when he puts it all together, like holy shit, like he's going to be. He just needs like time and reps.
Yeah, there are a lot of people on this card that are like, and we've already talked about it. There are a lot of people on this card that are in there. Like, if this guy puts this together, he's gonna be great. If they put it, they're gonna be great. It just shows the work that they're doing at Relentless. Like, it's like I always massively like prop Josh and the crew for doing that, because they've done wonders with it, and they've really turned something like from nothing into something that's a real strong breeding ground for athletes now, which is great to see. The next match was Tommy A against Country Chaos, and it's Tommy A with Country Chaos Kano against the Musketeer. Tommy is another one of those guys. Just needs to put it together. He's great, and there was some really good, solid heel work from Tommy and Kano in this match.
Tommy is one of those guys that, like, there's obviously a lot of comedy in wrestling, and the biggest problem with comedy in wrestling is a lot of it isn't funny. They think it's funny, but like it's funny that the guys in the back
to pop the boys, yeah.
To pop the boys. I've had shows where I've some like, especially the smaller ones that we were talking about at Melton, where Tommy will just be he'll do something or he'll react to something, and he'll make me genuinely laugh. Like, where I'm just like, he's so like, I will always like a wrestler who is so committed as a villain to making themselves look like such an absolute putz. And, like, he just leans, like, full force into making himself look like a dickhead at every opportunity. And I think it's, like, he's amazing at it.
That's one thing I'd like, being someone who works in that sort of role as well. You have to be prepared to show your ass. You've got to be prepared to have the crowd laugh at you. If you're going to be a smart ass and you're going to give them shit, you've got to give them the payoff. Yep. And that's something that Tommy seems to really like to do. Musketeer is good. Like, he had some good fire as a babyface with his comeback. I did notice there's like a few like 1%ers that he needs to work on, but I know he's relatively green, and that's going to come. It's just little things like he was in the corner and Tommy ran at him, and where you put the elbow up. Mm-hmm. He didn't so much put the elbow up as just threw his body at Tommy. It's like just more pronounced, so it looks like Tommy's actually hitting something. Just little things, just all little things. I know that's me being nitpicky, but that's kind of what I do. My only really pet peeve of this match at all was, like, they had Musketeer foil pretty much every interference from the manager, which sort of made the finish look a bit like, well, we know what's going to happen. He hasn't hit anything else all fucking night. He's not going to hit this one either. Whereas if they'd have let them get away with some shit during the match, they could get away with this. Do you know what I mean?
It almost felt like one of those old-fashioned sort of match ideas where, like, because they built this match that Tommy had been running away from the match for a couple of shows, so like they almost the story I felt coming out of it was almost the idea that this character is such a such a putz and that when eventually your hero just literally just runs through him, which I guess that ties in with it, and like. This was probably, aside from the main event, this was probably the hottest the crowd got during the show as well. Okay. Like, live, the crowd was, like, super, super into this match. Like, I don't know how much legs the gimmicks got beyond Mayhem, although he was in the Relentless Rumble, but, like, on shows with kids and something that Musketeer does, like, it's very easily digestible, and it's very... even though he does say all for one and one for all, it's like, well, there is only one of you, so where's
one for one?
From the movie Airheads, where like the band calls themselves the Lone Rangers. It's like, you're not exactly lone because there's three of you.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Like he really like leans into the character. And the crowd just like from the moment Tommy came out, the crowd wanted to see him get beat up. And that was the payoff, and it was fun.
Which is a underrated talent that people don't really like, because a lot of times nowadays the heel just wants to be the cool heel.
Yes,
and I like that. Some parts that annoys me because like I just want to be hated. Hate me. Don't think I'm cool. Just hate me because I think I'm cool.
Well, you can be, to me, like. You can be cool as a character, like, some of the greatest, obviously Four Horsemen, the greatest example of that, or The Rock's a great example of that, can be as cool as a cool gets. But at some point, you still have to have something that is to make people dislike you. Like,
yes.
Like, I've met people in music, and I've met people in and stuff like that, where I'm like, from a distance, that guy's cool as, and then you meet him like, oh, geez, that guy's a bit of a dick. Like, he's still cool because he's a musician or whatever like that, or like, but like, the old adage of not meeting your heroes sort of mindset comes from that, and I think, and again, like, if everyone's cool, like if every heel is the cool heel, or if every heel is the bumbling, idiot, there's no contrast, and I think so many guys like lean into, I want to be the cool bad guy that can sell merch, and I can, have people gush over me, but then it also allows me to not do any of the work of being a good guy, and I can just be rude to people and be an asshole. And obviously, there's a few people in Australian wrestling who've made that work for them. Like, obviously the best example of that is on WWE TV right now, has a championship belt, Grayson Waller. But he's the exception, not the rule. And
I know it's sort of hard for indie wrestling too, because, and I say indie wrestling is like just independent wrestling, because the guys aren't really getting paid out a lot. So if they can make some extra money on merch, it helps. It's that really thing, like, do I do that and make the extra money from merch, or do I just like stick to my guns and do my job as being like. Yeah, like there's a thing where like we've got like top tier stuff and stuff like that, and we bring out shirts every now and then, but not very often. And most of the shirts I have on Redbubble. So if you want them, you need to go and find them.
Because if someone
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do it that way than actually have them available for people to buy. It seems to be more annoying when they ask where'd you get that shirt from? You go, well, you have to go and find it, mate.
Well, it's also the thing of being they have a show this weekend with MCW, I think they sell Icons merch. Slex and Adam Brooks still have merch. They're the top two of the top three villains in the company. And it's like, there's always going to be people who are going to buy, even if it's like, if nothing else, like, because the design's cool. Like, TMDK are going out of their way to be the biggest packet. Evil dickheads in wrestling, and yet at every show you go to, you'll see at least a couple of TMDK shirts. So if something looks cool enough, and that people will like, I think people will, once they go to the merch table, will separate the artist from the art. But like, I think when they're in the middle of the suspension of disbelief as well.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. The next match we had on here was Jake Navarro with Billy Wright against Mitch Waterman. What did you think of this one, my friend?
Really dug this. Mitch is the shit, obviously. Like he's exceptional. And like it's a shame that his stint in the UK didn't seem to go that long. Because we come back and he just carries himself like a star. Navarro's one of those guys. He's technically exceptional. Like, he's a machine of an athlete. He just goes, and it's like his personality a little bit. Actually, both of the character, they're both a bit dry as characters, but that works. That's their thing. And I thought this was a really, really good match. Like, felt like a more like that ROH sort of influence, like wrestling for wrestling match. I like, this was, for me, this was a technically like solid match. It was technically fine, and everything they do is really, really good. I still want to see more from Mitch. I want to see him work a crowd more. I always feel like these shows are shows that he could try stuff. Yep.
Where he could like try and just branch out of his comfort zone. Obviously, I don't think he's very comfortable in working a crowd like that. Like, he's working the crowd as like slamming the mat, or like the generic working the crowd things.
He's almost got like a very, again, from my perspective, I'm a nerd for this shit, obviously. His way of, as a character to me, is very, it feels very Japanese.
Yes.
A lot more subtle and a lot more body language and stuff like that, whereas opposed to sometimes like on some shows playing to the cheap seats.
He's almost verging into like Philippe territory for me.
Okay.
like really, really good wrestlers. Like as soon as that bell rings, they're fucking great wrestlers. But
Just
then when
very
that
dry.
bell, when that bell doesn't ring or when it's just like, oh, they're just there. There's no real, like they look great on a 8x10. Like Mitch looks great on an 8x10, but like animate that 8x10 before he actually gets in the ring and the bell rings. There's not a lot of riz, if you know what I mean.
See, the thing that's really interesting with that is, like, I know he doesn't really do it a lot, but, like, he's actually quite a good pro. Like, he did when he had the matches with Buddy in MCW. Like, the promo, he cut a promo in the lead up to that. I'm like, holy shit, like, he really emoted and, like, and maybe that's the thing, but, like, obviously, in MCW, he's a made man, so it's, maybe that's like you don't want to mess with it a little too much. But yeah, like I would be really interested to see him try and like a bit beyond that.
You did like, especially on these shows, is like the perfect chance for him to go. I'm going to try.
Again,
just try and see what happens. Yeah, give what they bill it. It's okay. That's fucking 150, 200 people that did it.
Yeah. It's also, I think he's got a thing where he's, which is very funny because, like, in ring, he is quite cutting edge of what Australian wrestling is in 2024. But his character and his presentation, and I think a lot of that was actually this to what got him the crowd behind him in MCW, is he's extremely traditional. Like, the way he comes out, like, you know, the slapping the mat and the and stuff like that, it's very, almost like, you know, studio wrestling from the territory days. Like, he's a very traditional babyface, which is what I've liked with him coming back, where he's got the new gear and it's a bit darker, and I'm curious to see where he's going in MCW. Is because the story seems to be pushing to him having a bit of a harder edge, and obviously, so yeah, I'd be curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, that like that. It just this match for me, although it was really, really good, it felt like this was a match that they'd worked out, and they were sort of just going to ignore the crowd and just do their match. And that was the end was a
match a match for the boy, like to show the boys as well.
Yeah, and the end was very like 2022 WWE Raw TV episode.
Yeah.
Like the roll up, smash into each other, roll up, pin, out. That was very like, I was like, whoa, I've seen that about 1,000 times on Raw. Before I got better. After that, we had Ant Carver versus Casalino. This wasn't supposed to be a match. This is like the Carver Lock Challenge, which like straight away, as soon as I saw this, I went, well, I can tell who the bookers are influenced by right now, because this was straight out of like early 2000s, like 2010 Raw. That was the masterpiece going there, and it was still good. It was like, it was good for what it was. It was good for that crowd. It was perfect for that crowd, and got the two guys on the show.
Yeah, I think both these guys, in two separate ways, really underrated. Ali, like, I know some people, when he was in MCW, like, a lot of people shit on him in MCW.
But he's also really green back then, like when he first started.
He's been around a while. But like he did Wrestle Rock last weekend. He did the main event against Jake Andrew Arthur. It was a really good, like, something very different in a lot of Aussie wrestling. They had a monster fight. He's a guy who's really good at family shows. Like, I made the joke to Welchie that I described him as he's an Australian take on Big Daddy, like the as in like the big friendly monster. And like he.
I don't know why, but I thought you were going to say PN News for a second. I was like, don't do that to him.
Or the gear, the hair of the kid. And yeah, so he's really good at, like, again, listening to the crowd and reacting to the crowd. Like, you know, that if you hear as a kid, like, he does the chop and the kids, you hit the kid in the crowd, hit him again. Oh, you want me to hit him again? One more time. Like, stuff like that. Really good at that. Kava is quietly become one of my favourite wrestlers in Melbourne. Where he's just gotten like he was a guy who was obviously put when he came into MCW just before the pandemic or just after.
Yeah, just before.
Yeah, he was a guy who was obviously on shows because he looks like $1 million. Like,
yes,
in a scene of body guys, like he is probably the body guy in Melbourne wrestling. And he got by on the cover lock and doing stuff like that. But he's at the Renegade show, he had a match with Levi Nixon. It was like legitimately great match. And he's just every show he's one of those guys that like you're like, oh shit, like that was really solid, and it's gone from being that was really solid to wow, that was really good. And it's like every show he just gets better and better and better, and it's almost like he's getting a bit more confident in how he is as a wrestler. And like he's just real like again, it's a shame that a lot of the Melton shows aren't recorded, because there was a match with him and Lockie Hendricks teaming up on one of those shows where they were just like dynamite as a pairing, like playing off of each other as like the body guys.
That's right, that was their name too, wasn't it? The Body Guys,
something like that. And it's like because like the venue being it's a gym that's all surrounded by mirrors, so they were just like hamming it up over the top, which was really funny. But still also being like as bad guys, being like look at these two dickheads, like, you know. And he's actually become a guy that like every show that I see him on, it's like nobody talks about like his matches, but he's like, yeah, he has like really, really good matches, and just quietly, is like a really solid undercard guy. And I think he's probably going to be a guy in the next year or so that's probably going to start moving up, because I think he's starting, like, I know from going to most of the Renegade shows, he's in that lower card, but he's always given time on those shows, so they obviously got some faith in him. So
yeah, and like a lot of the guys, all they need is that, like you said, just that time to work out their stuff, to feel comfortable, because it's not as much as we sit here and we criticize. It's not easy to go out there and try to feel comfortable and try to react in the moment. And like a lot of guys, it comes naturally to, and that's fucking annoying. But for those few that you can see that they're slowly putting it together, and one day when they eventually will, they're going to be trouble for people because they have all the other tools that are just ready to fall into place.
One of the big things in Melbourne is like Melbourne wrestling for the longest time seemed very reliant, like especially in the coming out of COVID, there was we were relying a lot on imports from other states.
Yeah.
And I think with the way things are going now, is a lot of companies are like, well, we got all these guys here, like how are we going to know? Like, you know, like obviously you guys talk about Edward Dusk a lot. He was a great example, like how they give him the shot and he just catches fire. And I think they've sort of realized, oh shit, we've had all this incredible like talent in Melbourne under our noses all this time. So if we don't ever give him a shot, we're never going to find out.
Yeah, that's also a thing sort of up here in Brisbane, where like a lot of the promoters were stuck in this mindset. Not so much Pro Wrestling League, but a lot of the other promoters are stuck in this mindset. Like, oh, I need to get a Gino up. I need to get a Brooksy up. And there's nothing against Brooksy. I love Brooksy. I'll have Brooksy up every fucking month because like he's one of my boys. But it's sort of like it gets to the point where I just go, we look at the roster we have here. We can put on really good shows without having to bring these guys up. There's nothing against them, and they're great to have on shows, but we don't need them like we used to. Like, there used to be a time where if you wanted a really good show, you needed one or two guys to come up to work with some of the other guys to bolster a show. We don't have that anymore. We don't need that so much anymore, because the local guys are really good. They just need that push.
Well, it's the sort of idea where the Brooksy or the Robbie Eagles or the Slats or someone like that, they're an add-on to a show that's already stacked. They're not a crutch to fill in gaps. It's like,
that's right.
Yeah, and 100%. And like for me, my thing is, as a fan now, like I've been going to shows for a long time. there's some guys that I'll see them, I'll go, holy shit, you're still amazing, you're still like, watching Robbie versus Kushida in Ballarat, I was like, holy shit, like every time I see Robbie, I'm like, holy fuck, he's amazing. Like I genuinely believe he's one of the top 20 wrestlers in the world in 2024. But at the same time, for me, on what gets me going back every month now is actually like shows like this where I'm like, I like seeing the progression. I like seeing like we're both obviously we're both NBA guys. Like a lot of the joy I get out of watching the NBA is like, okay, you know, is a draft pick going to be like Wemby, or is he going to be a bust? Sort of like, and you invest in that, and that's that's what I like watching. And like the whole idea of like, there's some fans that they find they're one that they connect with like really early on, and they'll follow that person's run all the way through.
Well, it's like, because you would have been the same as me. Like I remember Brooksy when he was the protege.
Yes.
He was He was Matt Silver's protege, and he was the little guy, the rookie that was under the wing of Matt Silver, to what he is now, where he's like he is one of the lead dogs in Australian wrestling. Is like we've seen that maturation over the time, and you can see that happening with people slowly coming up.
Yeah, so that's one thing. And we're waffling a lot, but
yes. That's what we do.
Like, when we watch, like, obviously you and I have discussed with PWA, like, there's some things with PWA I do like, some things I don't like. One thing I really do like that PWA does is when they do commentary or they do video packages and stuff, they do make a lot of references to people's lore. Like, like the one of the things they're doing now, like, the thing with Moretti and Jimmy Townsend, and now they're bringing Cherry into that, and it's like, okay, well, these two characters are linked through here, and like her path is kind of is similar to Jimmy's path, so is like, and it's kind of giving you a reason to go, okay, the matches
that makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah, like the matches are cool, but like, okay, what's your hook? Like obviously, I've been to shows where I watch matches and they're amazing matches, but you forget about them 2 minutes after they end.
Yeah, that's AEW right there. That's 100%. Unless I'm like, I need to be somewhat emotionally involved in it to have it register me where it sticks with me. Like oh yeah, I remember that match because this all led up to it because they'd been doing all this in the background for fucking ages, and it blew up. And
like, speaking with AEW, that's like the difference between indie guys who've made it. That's the difference between a Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson or a CM Punk, or even like as not a work rate guy that people heard, but Eddie Kingston is. That's the difference between them as opposed to a guy that probably came up with them 20 years ago that is still working their local indie.
Yeah.
Who probably had the same level of talent, just never broke out because they never had that connection.
Yeah. Which is, it's hard. It's hard to get a connect. There's those guys that have it naturally, and there's guys that work on it, but it's hard to get it. But once you get it, you've got it. And it's great to see.
Like, you got a guy like Ricochet that, like, amazing talent, but like I can never connect with him. And it's like, I watch his matches and go, holy shit, this dude's amazing. And then I'm like, no, what's next? So yeah. Well,
next for us was the Renegades of Wrestling Tag Team title. The Ambush, Jarvis and Murdoch defended against the Physicals of Jimmy Castle and Johnny Jets. This was my favorite match of the show. I love this. It's going to sound weird, but I love this match.
It was really fun. Like I said, I've been a big Jarvis fan since, like, I saw him at PCW a couple of years ago, and I was like, this dude's hilarious. We were talking about off there, obviously, Murdoch is really underrated guy, and he's been around for, like, I think close to 10 years now, and it's cool that he's getting his thing. But the thing I loved on this, I think the physicals are hilarious. That it's two guys that look like they've been born in like 2003, doing the most.
They look like they've been born in the 80s. I fucking love it. I love it.
They look like they're 18 years old now, but they carried like they're like the guys from like the Monkeys.
Yeah. Well, they remind me so much of like a throwback of the Rock and Rolls and also the Midnight Rockers together. They've even got the old looks like he's got old Shawn Michaels' old haircut.
Yeah, and they got very generic tights with the old school sign writing on it and stuff.
I loved it. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, these are my guys. This is going to be my team that I watch every time that they're on a Mayhem show because they are such the perfect stereotype of a babyface that they take a beating. They take a beating so well, and Jarvis and Murdoch are a great heel team that they just meshed so well together.
Yep. I think that I thought this was really fun. These guys have, again, like we're comparing people from other states. I wonder if when these guys were coming up, like I don't know if this is their creation or this is something that's been given to them, but I'm wondering if they're like this reminds me of Jesse Lambert in Perth. The really the kind of dorky but like kind of earnest like you're looking
earnest is a great way to describe it. Earnest is a great way to describe it.
Just like not edgy in the slightest, like just the ultimate quote unquote good guy character. Like hand slapping, like I almost imagine every time that the physicals hit like a double team move, that like if it's on video, that the video should pause with them in the mid-air and like Stan Bush to start playing.
I
thought this was fun. Again, but those guys, like I think Jimmy's had maybe 10 matches. I think Jets had like less than. I think he's only had 5 matches. Like just really.
But like if I am like helping run Mayhem Pro, I'm putting those guys together all the time. You guys are a tag team now. You guys are our babyface tag team.
Yep.
Because the crowd fucking loved them. The crowd, they were doing the most generic double team stuff from the 80s, and the crowd ate it up. It's so good. And it can easily go to the fact where they love it to the fact where they start hating it, and then they can play into that even more. Like, there's so many options to go with this team, and I just, like, they became my favorite thing on this show, just through their look and their act and the way they sold and everything that they did. Just, it popped me huge. I love them.
Yeah, well, the thing that's quite funny on it, like pertaining to Mayhem as well, is I don't think they've been on the last couple of shows, but people forget that the original breakout people from Mayhem coming out of COVID was Big Dude Energy. So, and they obviously similar, obviously very different body types and very different characters, but they came out as a tag team, fully fleshed out, like as almost like if they come to you that you're running, they want to work for you in Wide Bay, they're like, you don't have to come up with everything. This is what we've got. You can make it as we see fit. And this is what I think these guys are doing here. And it feels like a lot of their presentation and stuff, it feels like the influence of the free trainers, like they're...
Yeah, it feels very JXT. Very JXT.
But then they're very presented like JXT, and then they're also very kind of digestible and easy to approach for a crowd, which is very Phil. So, yeah. So you can see the influence is really strong, I think. So that
like I said, that was my favorite, man. Like Jarvis and Murdoch were the perfect heel team to face them. Brought out the best in them. I don't know, like maybe if they'd faced another heel team, I mightn't have liked them as much. I don't know. As you know what I mean? It could be a mark of how good that Jarvis and Murdoch is, or it could just be the fact that they just worked really well together as a group.
Also, as a credit to Jarvis and Murdoch too, is there's some guys, if you'd bought in, heel tag team champion from another company to wrestle two guys that have got between the combined, say, 15 matches, they might have just eaten them up and given them nothing.
Yeah. You're 100% right there.
Yeah, the fact that
they made those guys.
Yeah, and it's like, because I think that's also like they're guys that have been helped along their way and they're paying it forward too. So,
but that's a mark of a good worker or workers is like you realise you're going to need these guys to work with down the road, not just tonight. You're going to eventually run out of people to work with. So the stronger you can make everyone you work with and still make yourself look good at the like by the end of it, they'd lost nothing. Like they came out of this looking the exact same as they went into this match, but they made the physicals look great.
Look like stars, yeah.
Yeah, also, which is a massive like shout out to those guys too.
I think Melbourne, there seems to be a growing thing as well. Like guys, I think more guys are getting on board the idea of doing tag teams as well because it makes them stand out. I think as well. So it's which is cool too because we do need like obviously we got the Natural Classics and we have the Pereira and MCW obviously coming from Adelaide, but like there's only so many times you can see those two teams match up. And so somebody's eventually, and obviously if the Pereira, I'm assuming at some point are going to be off to bigger and better, like off to conquer other shores, so somebody's going to have to step up in that place. And I think some guys are looking at it and going, okay, there's some young guys getting singles pushes. How can we find our niche? Well, maybe that's being a tag team. So. Yeah. I've always said that if I was going into anywhere new, I'd look at what they don't have and try and do that. Yep, 100%. Like fill a gap. Because that's a spot on the show, and if you get a spot on the show, you can make your mark. You can progress further. So 100%. It's always a foot in the door. The next match we had was the Cycle of Coagula. I think that's how you say it. Ezekiel and Isaiah defeated Happy Gas, Happy Kai, and Zed Nitro. This match was sort of just there. I think mainly because it followed the tag team match that it followed. Yep. And also, I think the thing that kind of hurt this is it was a fun contrast for the live crowd, but I wasn't sure how this match was actually would hold up on video. Is being that Kai and Zed kind of like looks a bit but Kai's a comedy wrestler, and they've been put against tons of charisma. It's like he's actually again one of my favorite characters. Like. I'm actually looking forward to seeing him on a show like Wrestle Rock because I think he'll get a lot of mileage over 18's crowd as well. But like they come out and they're kind of goofy, and then they can't obviously there's the cycle being that you got what's his name? Isaiah is he's an average sized dude, but he's built like a tank, and then you got Ezekiel's 6'9" or something like that, and okay, he's got some filling out to do, but he's all muscle, and I think the crowd were they didn't necessarily buy into these guys. They bought into the little spots and the comedy stuff as okay, this is fun, before these two mean-looking bastards are just going to kill these two. Yeah, if anything, I think this match maybe should have gone after Jake and Mitch. And then before Ant and just to break it up. It was just the back-to-back tag teams, I think, is what really sort of got. It's I just saw a tag team match, and it was a lot better than this. And that's not a knock on it. It was because it was just a different style, and probably a style that I like a lot more. But like I said, things got tons of charisma. Happy Kai has got tons of charisma. If Ezekiel ever fills out, he'll be an absolute monster. The ease that he stepped over that top rope, and I think during the main event he got up on the top rope for to block JXT going for a. So, and I was like, that dude should not be on the top rope. He could have stood on the second rope. He could have stood on the second rope and been eye to eye with JXT, though as tall as he is. But there are a lot of this whole card. There's a lot of upside in pretty much everyone on this card, which is great to see. I think also, when you're comparing the two tag matches, though, as well, is that the match that preceded was also, you had two very experienced guys as well, where this match was basically a student's match. But also, we were talking off air, I'm 6'2", 6'3" in boots, and I'm used to being taller than most wrestlers. It's actually nice to, go to a show and see a wrestler. I'm like, holy shit, I've got to look up at you. it's a nice change, but they're the cycle. I think they're doing. I believe they worked some smaller shows in Victoria, like the MXW and stuff in regional Victoria, as a babyface team as well. So
okay.
And there's another team from Relentless who are on this show. So they're sort of like doing a little feud. They're putting some stuff online and stuff too. So which is interesting as well. I think a lot of the shows like Happy Kai is a great example of a guy who his character is just like he's fully fleshed out. And I was actually surprised. His in ring was a lot better. I was like, oh wow, he can go too. But I think a lot of this thing is like the show is you got a lot of these guys are just again throwing shit at the wall. And it's like some of them are gonna have their strengths and their weaknesses, and that's kind of the fun of it too.
Yeah, it's all a learning process, which is cool to see.
Yep.
So, next up was our main event, and that was the Mayhem Internet Championship. Jab against JXT. Jab has a cool look, like the whole like Messiah look. I'm just not sure if like in today's society he could get away with it anywhere else but in Mayhem.
I think so. I know because he wrestles in PCW.
I think
James Bolton.
I think it's the Crown of Thorns. Anything else but the Crown of Thorns, and like he could probably get away with it. But that to me, I'm just like I look at that and I go, well, if this was in a bigger stage, there would be people upset about this.
Yes, I think so. But like, it's a thing. I want to hate his character. Like when he first started doing it, I'm like, kind of corny. I'm like,
But he does it with such conviction that
he genuinely is into what he does, and like being that he's a guy again. There's Lucky O'Leary's an example in MCW, a guy with an acting background, Bolton being the same, is like his expressions and like how he carries himself. Like he has like something that's very rare in wrestling, which you would like in Aussie wrestling at the moment, is he carries himself with genuine menace. Like he genuinely seems like I saw him at this particular show that like a guy was heckling him from the crowd and he just went up and just stared at the guy and just stared him down and like didn't shut like the guy didn't cower into his seat or anything, but he just shut the guy up. We just looked at him. And it's like
very Dusk-like.
Yes, and like
the same sort of conviction, the same sort of
comparison as well. Yeah, I do like. To me, I know you've compared him and Dusk before. Dusk to me is a little bit different of a character. To me, like
I don't think they're the same sort of character wise. I'm sort of like they carry the same intent. Well, they carry the same intensity. They carry the same like conviction when they're playing that character. Which is like with a lot of guys, you can see them. They're playing this character, but you're like, he's playing this character. Yes, a lot of times with Dusk and with Jab, you're not quite sure if they're just playing a character. Like this could be the guy.
Like he's really, really into it. And it's like, and some of the crowd, I think some of the crowd doesn't know, like, has no idea how to react, because you have some people that will make jokes about him, like, you know, Jesus jokes at him or something like that, and then some people they'll be all like, they look uncomfortable and they're booing him because like this makes me uncomfortable. Which is to me, I actually think it's on the flip side. I actually think a gimmick like this would have a lot more legs in a company like from the crowd, in terms of like being tolerant in a company like MCW or Renegade, something like that, because I think an inner city crowd would be a little bit more like being in a more rural setting. It's probably a little bit more conservative of an area as well. You're more likely to actually offend people with this. Well, maybe if he did this character in an inner city promotion, the crowd would just laugh at him.
Maybe I tend to think in a country sort of setting, they're a little bit more forgiving and not. They won't condemn as quickly as what I think it would happen in city.
Oh, I also think though that I think he'd probably get away with it on the basis of is the if you're going to make fun of any religion in Australia, Christianity is probably the one you're
that's the one you're going to get away with.
Like anything else, he probably would be like. Like I think the thing that makes it work for him is like he makes like he believes it, and like when you see him wrestle as James Bolton elsewhere, like they're two completely different guys. So it's like it's almost a thing of like when he goes out there, the switch is on and he's on. And I think this was a really, really good match. I think this is probably JXT's one of the better matches I've ever seen him have, period. Because like you got two guys who are very strong characters, but also, like, I think what hurt JXT when he was like a top guy in MCW was he was a little bit too hokey, I guess, word for it, like a little bit too old-fashioned for that sort of crowd. I think when he went and did the GCW stuff and obviously the time he spent in the US, he found that little bit of edge that he could bring into it to give him some like, you know, a bit of grit to him. And so this match, I think, showed the best of that. Like, he had his very playing to the family sort of characters, and very, you know, again, you know, every time he's getting beat up, he's reaching out to the crowd and stuff like that. But then with his moves and how, like, he would do stuff that would be very, quote unquote, indie. And Bolton's similar. Like, he's a guy, or Jab, sorry, is a similar, that he's so character based that he would do things like where he does the the hook kick where he with the heel, and it's like, holy shit, that's really, really like sharp and on point. And he'll do things where you're like, wow, he's really athletic and he can do all these sort of things, but you don't always notice it because his character's so strong. And it's almost like he gets away with doing a lot out of less.
Yeah. I really like this match. I really like this. This was a main event match. Like, they went and showed, if there were students in the back that watched the show, they're like, this is how you do a main event match, kids.
Yep.
Even with the classic dusty finish, where they timed it perfectly because they let JXT have the celebration for a bit, then you took it away from him. I love that. That, as an old school wrestling fan as I am, I love that shit.
Yeah, very, very Jim Crockett. Like I really dug this match a lot. The only thing I would have had is he gets robbed, and then he does his bow, and that's the end of the show, sort of thing like that. Is if they were going to do that, I would have liked if there was a hook, because I actually thought like maybe they're going to do a gimmick or something like that next time they come back there.
Call them out or.
Yeah, like maybe because I know like they did a in going back to King Kolak, they did a storyline in there where Sketch was chasing JXT for their title, and they did a cage match. So they have a cage, or access to a cage. So I thought maybe they might do something like that. But aside from that, I really, really liked this match. I thought it was, I think it was Bolton's best match, and I think it's also like probably the best match I've seen JXT have. Which like a guy who's got 10, 12 years of pretty high standard work, that's, I think, pretty, that one of his own students had the match for one of his own students.
Yeah, it's good to see that even after like 12 years, he's still like evolving as a worker and getting smart. Like the more you wrestle, the smarter you get, and he seems to be getting, like, there was a way there where he went a little off the rails, but the way he's come back and the way he's started the school with the guys that he started the school with, just helped like showing guys, look, I did some dumb shit. Let's make sure you guys don't do it. This is where I went wrong.
100%. Yeah.
And and now, not only is he doing that by his words and his actions, he's doing it by showing them in the ring as well. Well, this is how you work a fucking main event match, guys. This is a main event.
Well, you're looking at you look at the senior people of Relentless and Mayhem, which is obviously JXT, Jake Navarra, Funtime Phil, Sid Parker, Erica Reed. The one that stands out on that is Erica. Erica is someone who has courted some controversy in the past, who's always had talent, but sometimes, probably been her own worst enemy. And it's a situation where she's grown and she's evolved, and her work's grown and evolved, and now she's on the hottest run of her run at the moment. Like she had the WWE tryout, she had the thing in Ballarat with all the stuff with
IPW title,
with her and Delta this weekend, to the point now where she's built such a rapport and capitalised on her strengths that she's got, where now some people saying, well, she might be, like, if she beats Delta for the belt, the crowd's not going to go, oh, that's a bit,
no, she is believable to be able to beat Delta.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the thing of the guys with Relentless is all those guys have all been around a long time, but are all finding ways to use their experiences and kind of give themselves, revitalize their runs and find new purpose and new energy, which I think's fucking awesome. So yeah,
and it's great to see. This was years ago when I was really sort of not starting it at Riot City, but I was a little ways in, and we were doing this show, and I sat down with Cree to do a podcast, and we were talking about it, and I just I was like, why didn't you ever try to go to America? Why didn't you ever try to do any of that stuff? And he's like, never appealed to me. I just wanted to make my local place as good as I possibly could, so that I always had somewhere that I could work. I can still be home with my family. I can still all this, but somewhere that I'm proud to work. Somewhere that people around the country will look at and go, that's somewhere where I would like our place to be. He said, I just want to make us as strong as possible, and it seems to me that's what people are doing now with Mayhem and Relentless.
Yeah, I remember hearing a quote years ago from a musician in punk scene, hardcore scene, where he said some bands want to climb the ladder and they want to be rock stars and they want to do all this and whatever. And he said, but my thing is, if they want to climb that ladder, I'm happy being in the scene of being the guy that holds the ladder steady for them. And I think there's, that's, I think, a very noble thing to have. And heaven forbid, maybe one day that Australia, the indie scene in Australia, or it won't be an indie scene; it'll just be wrestling in Australia, and guys won't have to move to Florida to make a living. And those who do go, and they go chase the dream, they go, fuck yeah, that's awesome for them too. But then I don't think the guys who don't, Matt and Grimm Chris and Grimm are a great example. They don't have to chase overseas, or they don't need to be on TV to quote unquote have made it. Made it is relative to themselves. And also I think the biggest thing that you have here is there's a lot of guys obviously in wrestling in this country who, for them, the amount of guys who can make money off wrestling that they don't need to work is probably a handful at the most. It's a hobby for most, but you don't treat it like it's a hobby either. You treat. I always look at some shows where you go to where your chicken shit. I know who it's going to be. Is I see some of these guys and I think, well, when you dreamed about being a wrestler, is this what you dreamed of being about? Are you the best that you can be? And I see guys that they might not ever attempt to go beyond not even their own state, maybe their own promotion, but they are the absolute best that they can be. And to me, that's making it just as much as having a contract with 3 letters on it. You know what I mean?
Yep. You don't even have to be the best worker. You just, for me, you just need to look like you're trying to be better all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As long as you're trying to improve, always being trying to improve. It's good to be happy where you are, but you always want to be better. Do you know what I mean? And that better doesn't necessarily mean like you said, going to America, going to Japan, going to just better in yourself, better as a worker, better as like, you know, he mightn't be there, but that guy could have if he wanted to.
100%, yeah. Like, my thing I always remember was I took my dad to the one show he went to many, many years ago. It was the Australian Wrestling Super Show about 22 years ago. The first big one that they did that was on Foxtel. And he looked at the show and he's like, you know, because Dad never particularly liked wrestling. But he remembers, I can't remember who it was, but there was someone on the show that he's like, that guy looks like a somebody. Like, that guy looks like he could kick somebody's ass. And for someone who only went to the show to come with me and have a drink and we, you know, hang out, is that you could convince that naysayer of a person. And I think, like, people like me for the most part, like, I'm on board. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we're sold.
We're sold. I've been especially on a local level, but like, if you can get somebody, like the old adage, it might take one good show to get them to come back. It might take 10 great shows to get them to keep coming back, that they become people like me who keep coming back. It might take one really bad show for them to go, oh, this is fucking shit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing of like, I think people need to, because I think on some smaller shows, there's guys that are like, oh, I do this for me, which is noble. Like, you know, okay, of course you're doing it for you, but you're also got to look at it on the basis of like, you're also performing in front of a paying crowd.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, we're in cost of living, which is a big thing. But even beyond the money, like, the biggest thing I look at, like, in a city, like obviously yourself in Brisbane, me in Melbourne, I grew up in Sydney. There's so many different things that you could do. It's your time. Like, I would be mortified if I felt like I'd wasted somebody's time. That they could have gone to anything else.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, like, you obviously had a great time at this show. If you guys want to watch it at home, if you haven't watched it, I do encourage you to go and watch MayhemMania. It's on YouTube. Just look up Mayhem Pro and you'll find it on YouTube. There's a whole lot of their shows that are on YouTube at the moment, so do go and check them out. Like I said, it's a really, really good promotion. It doesn't have the polish of like an MCW or a PWA or anything, but that's what I think, that's part of its charm as well.
Yep.
Is that it doesn't have that polish, and that these guys are up and coming, and a lot of these guys that you'll see on these shows are guys that in like 2 or 3 years, if you're watching an MCW show and they see them popping up, you go, I remember watching him when he was a rookie. I saw him on Mayhem Pro back in the day. He was fucking great. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those, because you know yourself, you love doing that shit. When you see someone pop up like Dusky, I remember him on PCW. He was great back then. Like, it's good to see him getting a chance finally. Do you know what I mean? It's really weird, but it's a point of pride for a wrestling fan to go, I saw that guy, I told you he was going to be good. So it gives you a chance to do that. We are going to go to a break, but before we do, make sure you follow us on all your Instas, your Wrestle Radio AU and all of that sort of stuff. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll probably talk about, because I didn't even know, did you realise that the Backlash was on this weekend?
I had no idea. Like,
no.
Yeah. I was
like, it's going to be in a couple of weeks now.
I was like, oh, shit. Like, it still feels like Mania was last week.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, we'll be back right after this on Wrestle Radio Australia.
Do you want to be a pro wrestler? Then sign up now to the Relentless School of Pro Wrestling.
Located 50 minutes west of Melbourne, with a full gym, strength and conditioning coaches, a nutritionist, and world-traveled professional wrestling coaches to help you achieve your goals in professional wrestling business. Whether you want to be a wrestler, a manager, referee, or just involved in the industry, with no tryout required, the Relentless School of Pro Wrestling is here to help you achieve your goals.
All you have to do to start your journey is sign up now to be relentless.
Yeah, follow Relentless on all your socials as well. Relentless Pro Wrestling School, I think it's called, or the School of and also Mayhem Pro as well, because they're doing some really great stuff in Melbourne, and it's really noticeable when like MCW now are having like a Relentless match or a Mayhem Pro match as their like pre-show is a Relentless match is part of the pre-show for an MCW show. It shows how far that they've come along as a school just by doing that.
100%, yeah. And I think, I saw that and I was like, yeah, that's pretty fucking wrong. Especially considering that they've got the links to the MCW has the links to the Wrestling Academy, which is the old PCW school as well. So the fact that they're also investing or giving an opportunity to guys for another one, I think that's really rad. But like, I mean, even when we were at Starcast, like, there was I think about 25 people from the school who were just like anything that needed, like they were just everywhere, like getting stuff done, and it just seems like what you were talking about with Riot City when you were coming in, that they had like almost like that footy team culture, like, you know, the rising tide floats all boats sort of mindset, and it seems like these guys have the exact same thing too, and I think that's really fucking cool.
I completely. We're in the break now, so this won't be on the podcast, so it's it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I'll let you know when we come back from break. This is the bit where we just bullshit for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm sweating. Like I waffled. I went probably a lot longer than I probably should have. I mean,
You're fine. We're still live and people are still watching us. But this is a little bit for the extra people that watch live.
Yeah.
So it gives them that thing. It's fine, mate. Like people always worry about coming on these things and talking about things. It's just bloody talking. It's just having a chat. I know. I used to get worked up about it too, and then I realized like 2 years into it, I'm like, it's just talking. We do it all the time. We always talk wrestling. I'm just doing it with a microphone in front of me. I think that's the thing that shocked me about being at Starcast, when people would come up and say, I listen to the show, it's really thanks, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, half the time I don't even realise that people are listening. Yeah. And if you ask other people, they don't think anyone listens anyway, so it's fine.
Well, yourself and Lachlan bullshitting back and forth, and Jeff's in there as well, and but it's funny because, like, obviously, you know, there was the Benoit group on the Gorilla Monster
group, yeah.
And I admit, I used to be a fucking. I was the worst sort of wrestling fan before, because I was a smart ass, but I was a smart ass for the sake of being a smart ass. Where, like, I would intentionally go to bad shows because I would watch it like I was watching Mystery Science Theater. And, like, I mean,
we've all done that. We've all done that.
But, like, I remembered, like, some of the things in hindsight that I would say were just mean-spirited. And not, like, they were valid criticisms. Don't get me wrong. Like, I still think some of the things, my views were valid. But it's almost like, when I started, because I wasn't sure after COVID if I was going to come back to watching wrestling shows. Because I went to one show and I left, like, 15 minutes in because it just wasn't for me. And that was an MCW show, and I decided that if I was going to come back to watching wrestling shows, and I went to a few, and people were asking me, well, what do you think it is, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and maybe it's a sign that once I passed 40, and I'm getting old, so, I like to talk about things that I liked. I find like, if someone asks me, like you and I talk, and you go, hey, what did you think was shit? I'll say, hey, I thought that sucked, or I thought, you know, that was dodgy as fuck, or whatever like that. But, like, as a public thing, I don't see any, unless somebody is just so dodgy that it's almost like buyer beware.
Yeah.
If somebody has a match on a show that sucks or something like that, and I watch it, I go, that was a bit, how's it going? I don't see any value in talking about that as much anymore. Like, for me, there's more value in, hey, I didn't like, you know, Joe Blow versus John Smith, but, like, this match over here was really, really cool, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And just trying to, like, I got my PMA, my positive mental attitude, so
And you're still lasting. It's amazing.
Yeah. But it's just it's fun to be positive. It's just really funny that there's people in Sydney that I swear if I dropped dead tomorrow they'd come to my funeral to piss on my grave. Because there was a few people I had threats against and stuff like that, or who had made friends against me and stuff like that. And then I come down here and oh, this guy's really positive and really friendly. It's like, wow, you didn't know me in Sydney. That's
yeah, you did not know me a while ago.
But that's why I'm along with yourself, the whole 5-star thing as well is or the DMDU thing. You and I had discussions where I defended DMDU to the absolute fucking hilt. My issue I had with that was if I donated to that venue and I donated $50 or $100, we're both people, we're middle-aged blokes who've got jobs. Losing $100 would suck, but it's not the end of the world. But when you've got people who are desperate to be, you could tell they really wanted to be part of that community and they really believed in that and they put their money in good faith, and then they got ripped off. You got someone like Beck is a great example. Beck getting ripped off. I'm like, come on, man! You're better than that. Do better.
See, that's 100% why I was I couldn't give a fuck what they did. I don't care about death matches are my thing, but I don't give a shit enough to constantly rally against it. Enjoy your shit. If you want to bleed all over the place, bleed all over the place. That doesn't affect my day in any way, shape, or form. Don't rip the fans off.
Well, yeah, it's as much as there was all the talk about Backlash against death matches, Michelle's company doesn't really seem to get much in the way of Backlash, does it? The only Backlash
because she does
the no ring thing, and aside from that, people are just it's not my thing.
No, because she does all the right things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She does she looks after, and she fan service and doesn't the most we should ask out of our fans is to pay for a ticket and come and see us.
100%. And it's it's a situation where obviously I'm a music guy. I look in Melbourne at the moment, there's venues dropping like flies, and they're good. Then pubs and bars and stuff like that, they're good play. They get patronage, but their costs are just gone for the point that they can barely survive. So any person who comes to one of their events is helping keeping them going.
Yeah.
And that's where I looked at certain things. I went to a DMDU show that the show finished after midnight, and it's okay, I get that they had issues that caused the show to run over time, whatever, but it's
when did the show start? What time did the show start?
There was one show that started at 7:30, and which was the one with Dusk and Tyson Baxter in the cage, which was actually that was their last show I went to, and that started at 7:30 and finished at 10 to midnight. But there was one that we went to where they did the War Games match, and the show started I think at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and Lobo finished his speech after the match at 12.
That's
and it was
too long.
I know that they had delays with the cage and stuff like that. It's all right, cool. They drew it out, but it's at some point, if you have a thing where you have to have an hour intermission at 9 o'clock because part of the cage hasn't turned up yet, it's well, when do you cut your losses out of respect for your audience? And, and it's also the thing with a lot of the deathmatch stuff is with Joel. I don't mind Joel as a bloke. Some of the decisions that he's made, he's been around where venues have been lost. He remembers he's been around long enough to see what can happen when things are dodgy, and it's surely, if it's someone who's 18 years old, like that kid who ran the show. I can't remember what it was called. There was a show in Melbourne last year. They talked up all this thing. They ran one show and then they folded immediately after. The guy running it was 19.
Oh yeah, I remember the one. Yeah,
like he's he's a kid. Like, if you're especially if you've been around wrestling 15, 20 years, like, something like 5-star Flash. Like, he's been around over 10 years. Actually, over 15 years. I think he started in Perth like 15 years ago. Like, he's been wrestling in Sydney for at least 10. It's like, surely you should know by now that people are going to go, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah. Fair no. Anyway, we'll get back into it, and yeah. Should be fun.
Thing.
Here we go. In 3. Welcome back, everyone, to Wrestle Radio Australia, Making Chicken Salad. As I, Todd Eastman, the poor man's Dave Meltzer. I'm here with Nick Galea. Thank you for joining me tonight, mate. Lachlan and Jeff could not be here, so I found someone with great football taste, but likes talking wrestling, which is hard to find nowadays. Yeah. We have got this Sunday at 3 a.m. So if you set your clocks, or just get up when you get up and watch it later, because that's what I plan on doing. WWE Backlash. This one snuck up on us. It's live on Foxtel or Binge and KO. I'm just going to run through the card quickly, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Undisputed WWE Heavyweight Championship is on the line with Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles. The World Heavyweight Championship is Damian Priest and Jey Uso. The Women's Championship is a triple threat match: Bayley versus Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton. Randy Orton and Kevin Owens are taking on Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. And the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships is on the line. Kabuki Warriors against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Now, that's 5 matches? So there might be 1 or 2 matches added to it, but it's a fairly solid card when you look at it.
Yeah.
Nothing that really, that grabs you.
It almost feels like it's in your house Backlash, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because it was so quick and so and the fact that it's somewhere in it's in Paris, it's in France, so you think they might have put a little bit of something more behind this, but it was like the draft, which was a fucking light breeze at best, really sort of cannonballed anything you could do with setting up this show, really.
Yep, and especially you coming off WrestleMania was just so much. They just had so much on WrestleMania that anything. It almost feels like they've taken the approach of okay, well the crowd's going to expect anything other than super epic to be a disappointment. So we'll do a little bit more of just a stripped back, more chilled sort of build, and just concentrate on putting on a really good show instead.
Yeah. No, Keanu Reviews is right. That there was no surprise with the draft. It was boring. It was very boring. There was something I saw I heard on a podcast, which I thought was really friggin' good. A good idea, and they should possibly have done that instead. And instead of having this WWE draft where everyone goes into a pool and then you can pick from there, they should just go, look, this is the NWO. This is a WWE, technically the off season. So you guys can trade between the two things, and we're going to do a draft where top 10 guys, or 5 people, or 6 people from NXT you can call up. Yep. And that's
you treat the NXT draft like a sporting draft.
Exactly. Then that way the NXT, because the NXT guys are always going to turn over talent. They're always going to, and they'll never take the everyone that's the best. They'll never take the top, because there are people that have been there for fucking ages. Like Dijak got drafted, and Dijak's been there for friggin' ages.
Yeah.
So
years now, I think.
Yeah. So I think it's just a different way of doing it. If you can do stuff like, okay, say Raw wants friggin' Jey Uso, so they trade a tag team for him because they think he's valuable. Just little things like that, just to make it different. Make it more like the NBA. If you want to do a draft, make it a draft. Make it like
on your sort of thing, is if you traded he traded Jey Uso, who's like a moderate level guy, for a draft pick. So then you get the rights to have Ron Baker on your show.
Yeah, yeah. Or even they're like
doing seem like a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even they say, look, you both brands get 10 to 15 workers. Okay, these are the people that you say. You know when like for instance when the NBA do when they added Toronto and Vancouver, they did the expansion draft.
Yep.
Where you have to okay, you can have these people from our roster can be in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not taken, then they stay with us. But aside from that, they're there. Maybe they do something like that, where it's not just the champions. Because the one thing that confused me, right, was they're no champions can be traded. Well, the champions aren't eligible for the trade, right? But then they kept all the groups together. So if a group, you drafted a group, you didn't just draft one person.
They all met this one anyway, yeah. So it's just
Yeah. But Damian Priest is a member of the Judgment Day, so that would have, by proxy, meant none of the Judgment Day could get traded or get drafted because he can't get drafted. Yeah, so it was just, there were little things like that sort of just I was like, okay, anyway. So that's going to happen. I can't see anything special happening on Backlash, really.
On the flip side with the draft, though, I thought one thing they did really good was when they brought the people up from NXT and they treated that like a big deal. And then they did Carmelo and Cody. I watched that and I was like, wow, that was actually a really, really strong match. And
except for that one spot, but...
Yes. But they went out of their way to make him look like a star, which I thought was a nice... with the pay-per-view, it looks like every match on that card looks like it'll be a strong match. And, it's a pay-per-view with 5 matches, so I'm assuming that means everything's going to get at least 15 minutes, and then you got all your ad breaks. The only thing that I'm looking at on this is I like Cody as a wrestler. On a 5-match show, on a 5-match pay-per-view, I could see Cody being out there for 45 minutes. Him being out there for a really long... him doing, this... Well, WWE likes their big, long... I think, Roman and Cody was, 35, 36 minutes.
Yeah.
On a show where they don't really have time constraints, I could see them doing, a long match, and that's where it might be a little bit, but, aside from that, the actual card looks, solid, and I
the only thing I can see maybe changing is the women's tag champs. I can see maybe Bianca and Jade winning that.
Yes, yeah.
But aside from that, and I'm interested to see how Tama goes in his first match in WWE.
100%. But at the same time as well, it's okay, they've built Solo up for the last 18 months, 2 years or so, and then Tama's come in with a heap of hype. But you're wrestling Orton and Owens, it's do you take the former champions, 2 henchmen, against 2 of the biggest stars of the company? I guess that depends on how well they're going to present them and make them look like top guys, as opposed to... I
think they're going to win this. I think they'll win this match.
Yes.
Because otherwise they lose a hell of a lot of... Sikoa loses a lot of momentum if he loses this match.
And it's obvious, they're all in on him as being, because with his illness and stuff, who knows when Roman's going to come back. And if he does come back, is he going to be like what he was when he had the belt, where he's he's on the Hogan sort of thing, where he's a special attraction who turns up, 6 or 7 times a year.
I can see him coming back and then getting the Usos back together against Sikoa, Tama, and then what's his name, Jacob Fatu.
Fatu, yeah. The only thing I see with Jacob Fatu is, out of all the Island Boys, I think they will present him, I'm assuming, as a member of the Bloodline when he debuts, but the crowd will cheer him because everywhere he's gone, that ends up happening. He is in wrestling in 2024. As a presentation and how he wrestles and how he carries himself, he is quote unquote using cool as a term. He's the coolest wrestler in wrestling currently. that when he comes out, like he being, he's a 300-pound, brick shithouse of a guy that moves like a cat. He's like basically he's like a video game character come to life.
Yeah.
And I could see that, like, as soon as people see him on TV, they're going to be like, we have to boo the rest of the group, but this guy's cool as fuck.
Yeah. Either that or Roman brings him in.
Yes, which could be as well. Like, it ends up being like the civil war between the family, which, and I guess it'll be the person, like, hypothetically, if Roman's health issues and that he's not going to wrestle full time, it would be a really cool feather in the cap if someone else in the bloodline is the one that basically kills off his character. Like, to give someone the rub of that. Like, the show looks strong. Like, I think obviously Cody and AJ will be good. Priest and Jay will be fine. I think the two tags, solid. And I think the women's championship match will be quite good. Although, to be honest, I would have probably just preferred that they'd done either Bayley versus Naomi or Bayley versus Tiff. Because I'm not a big fan.
I think this is a way for Naomi to eat the pin here and keep Tiffany strong.
Yep.
As well. Do you know what I mean?
They're testing the waters to see how Tiffany will probably go as being like the top of a division as well.
That's my feeling.
Because she's
just
she's
she's got that thing that really works with that crowd. So that's 3 a.m. Sunday. If you're up here in Queensland, I don't know if you guys have, but we got a public holiday this weekend. So if you want to watch it live, you can. But I know I'm just going to wake up when I wake up and watch it.
I'll be honest, I won't get up at 3 a.m. for it.
No, nothing on that card screams you have to watch this live.
Yep, 100%.
So, one thing that if you're in Melbourne, you should go and watch live though is MCW High Stakes. It's on this weekend. Jarvis versus Shen, Mitch Waterman against Mick Moretti with Shadow Ali, Robbie Thorpe against the debuting Tuckman from PWA, the Icons in the main event against the Natural Classics for the MCW Tag Team Championship. I don't know if it's a main event actually. Edward Dusk against Lucky O'Leary, Tommy Knight against Caveman Ugg. Again, if you watched the first one, that was a big meaty men slapping meat match. It was awesome. Yep. And also Delta is defending the MCW Women's Championship against Erica Reed. Mate, are you going to this show?
I am indeed. It's always a good time. I like that part of town. It's always cool to go to. And the shows are always fun. And, like, we were just got, the pre-show and stuff as well. So I was like, I enjoy MCW, and I think their shows, they're on a bit of a hot streak at the moment. So, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks like a really, really strong card. For MCW.
They're putting their best foot forward.
I'm getting interested to see how Tuckman gets over with that crowd. I'm getting very interested to see that.
Especially against, like, Robbie he's still obviously getting booed, but there are people who are getting on board with him as well. Because Melbourne crowds are very, very partial to Melbourne wrestlers, especially if they're wrestling someone from interstate. There've been a lot of guys who've come from interstate thinking that they're going to set the world on fire, and the crowd's like, "Who the fuck are you?" So, although I think the MCW crowd of a few years ago is probably, as opposed to now, I think now is a lot more welcoming to someone coming in than it would have been a few years ago. So, but like I think this will be a really strong show. Should be a killer show.
Yeah, it's looking well. I can't tell you off the top of my head how tickets are going, but if it's like every other MCW, it's going to sell out. So if you haven't got a ticket already and you can still get one, I definitely recommend you getting in there before today. This will go up on Friday, so good luck getting it before Saturday. So there you go. Just run through some just news bits quickly. Drew McIntyre has signed a multi-year extension with WWE, so that solves that mystery that everyone was talking about. He said in an interview that he was always going to re-sign with WWE. It was just a matter of working out the numbers and that sort of gimmick.
he's doing the best work of his career, and he's like still only in his late 30s. He's been around forever.
And they've got him in a program with Punk. So I mean, you're not going to work with anyone that draws more money than that guy.
100%, and it's like they could get 6-7 years out of him. He'll still only be in his mid-40s. Like he's money for them. Letting him be himself is the best thing that they've done.
Yeah. Because I'll be honest with you, like a year ago, I was kind of bored with him.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Scottish Warrior.
After we had the title match in Cardiff, like the main event, which was fucking awesome, but like it was kind of like, okay, he's just another one that's been put to the side, and like, yeah, just giving him a chance to just be this smart ass character. I think he's great.
Coming out of Dynamite today, that's the name of the show. These are the updated lineup for AEW Double or Nothing. It's AEW World Championship. Swerve Strickland will defend against Christian Cage. The international title will be Roderick Strong against Will Ospreay. The women's title is Toni Storm against Serena Deeb. And the TBS title is Willow Nightingale defending against the debuting Mercedes Moné. Look, I know everyone likes Christian Cage. This feels like a very mid-card match for the world title.
It's a placeholder match,
Yeah. I just when it was Christian, I'm just like, oh, okay. But last time we saw him, he lost to Copeland.
Yeah,
and now he's got a title match.
Yeah, it's AEW in a nutshell. Like all 4 of those matches, I'm like, okay, that's real. Like the matches will be good. Like that show, if you watch that in a vacuum without any instances of story or anything like that, all 4 of those matches will be like, fuck, that's really good wrestling. It's just if it can give you a hook to actually make you want to tune into the TV that comes afterwards. Like Tony versus Deeb is actually like that's a draw card match. I'm a massive fan of Serena Deeb.
Same.
Like she's amazing. And like of all the people doing the Bret Hart tributes and all the Bret Hart ass kissing that was in AEW for a long time. Like she's probably the closest thing to him wrestling style in that company. And like Swerve and Christian will be fine. Like Roddy and Ospreay will be great. And the thing with Mercedes Moné, like she's obviously a star, but like the thing that AEW has for me is she already feels like just another member of their roster. Like I watched I watched on YouTube today the thing on Dynamite with where they had Okada come out, and it's like, God bless him, he seems like he's probably getting paid obscene amounts of money to work once a week, but he no longer feels like special. He just feels like just another guy. Like Adam Copeland is just another guy. Like the only Bryan Danielson, realistically, like in my opinion, if not the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time, is top 5, is just another guy on that show. Like they have their moments where they break out from that, but it just feels like Tony has his toy box, they go into his toy box, and that's it.
Keanu says it was cool seeing what. Sorry, I just highlighted. I'm not used to doing this. This is something that Lachlan does. It was Lachlan's thing. Yes. It was cool seeing the Elite do the stuff to Omega today. Though, that was pretty cool. It was interesting. I'm giving this some time to see where it goes. I'm not a massive Young Bucks fan. I don't like them really, but I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see what they do with it.
100%. And like as much as I'm still not a fan of his. But like I think they're doing a pretty good job. Like I thought the Tony stuff they did last week was corny as fuck. I thought it was horrible. But the stuff they did this week was like, okay, we got to make these guys look like
dangerous.
Like dangerous, yeah. And that's what they did. Like they went out of their way to make all 4 of those guys look dangerous. Which like. The Bucks and Perry, like those 3 guys don't look particularly dangerous, but they went out of their way to at least make them look like, okay, well, at some point, I'm now invested to see Kenny basically run through these guys, which is interesting. And out of all the elite guys, Kenny's the one I have the most goodwill as a fan for as well.
Oh, especially after I heard some of the stuff he'd said on Twitch, where he was talking about, he goes, "Yeah, I kind of agree. Sometimes you just have to fight. That just you get it out of your system."
He's a guy. He played hockey in Canada, so he's probably had fights with teammates a million times before. So,
yeah, it's 100%. Speaking of fighting, AEW seems to have a hard time at the moment fighting to keep their streaming deals.
Yep.
Because they've lost 2 of them in the space of a couple of months now. Like the VIX platform in Latin America have pulled AEW programming from their lineup, and also DAZN, which is a big streaming service, ended. They had a 3-year deal with AEW to stream their pay-per-views and all of that sort of deal, but they had an exit option after year 1, and they've exercised that option, so they're gone from DAZN. So that's all of Europe, I believe.
Yeah. I wonder how many people especially with sports streaming stuff, what's out in Australia, KO and stuff like that. I wonder how many people for those sort of streaming platforms, with the way that the economy is around the world at the moment, that's one of the first things that people will cut is stuff like that.
I also think, because I think the DAZN thing was also it was pay-per-view, so you had to pay to
on top of it,
yeah. So that to me, I think the pay-per-view model is a really hard sell in today's 100%. Environment.
Well, again, you compare it to the WWE thing. Obviously, they got the luxury of being the biggest fish in the pond. But if you watch WrestleMania, you don't have to pay extra for WrestleMania.
No,
as opposed to watching a random pay-per-view. Your show has to be absolutely impeccable to get people to pay that. Because I think our pay-per-view costs in Australia aren't too bad, but I think in the US they're $55-$60 US for some pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And it's
that's a lot to ask for people.
100%. And maybe they're also looking at the things too of you look at some of the shows where you can obviously see that they've blacked out large parts of the arena because there's not many people, and maybe these networks are thinking, well, are we going to lose money on this investment because the interest just isn't there?
Yeah, and that was another, this week it came out that because the NBA TV rights are being negotiated at the moment, and Comcast came out and said they were willing to pay $2.5 billion a year for the rights for NBA. Basically, that's the rights that the WBD have for TNT, TBS to show NBA games. Now they've got a choice where they can match the 2.5 bill. So if they match that 2.5 billion, I don't know where the money is for AEW to get their TV deal out of that. I'm just being honest with it. I don't know where the money is. I mean, they might be able to get a deal, but it won't be anywhere near what I think Tony was banking on.
100%. Well, you got the situation where, even on a small scale, in the wrestling industry, I remember a big thing was when ECW was on TNN in the early 2000s, and TNN ended up getting the rights for Raw.
Yeah.
And they got to the point where there was I think it was 3 or 4 months left of the contract when they negotiating, and they just cut all funding to ECW because they realized that we can't have one and the other. Obviously, comparing the NBA on sort of a much bigger scale, and obviously WBD is such a giant juggernaut of a thing.
Yes.
But wrestling will always have its audience, but if you're comparing wrestling to the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball, 99% of networks in the US will gladly throw almost all their programming aside if they could get exclusive rights to that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And I think it was at the moment because I've been reading up a lot of this because I'm a nerd when it comes to these sort of things. and it's like I think WWE get it's like $1.06, something like that per ad or per hour for programming or something to that effect. Whereas like AEW get like 42 cents.
Yeah.
Per.
So it's a market difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a marked difference and also the rating thing. So I don't know where they think that because with their ratings and all that, they're not drawing the same as what WWE are. I don't know where they can say, well, we deserve not the dollar, of course, but like 80 cents. Yes. Because I don't think that they're paying their way.
No.
If you know what I mean.
The situation is they're not doing like hideously bad, but they're just
they're not.
They've never grown, and it's like I get the impression that like if someone was a dollars and cents person, from a streaming service, they might have looked like, okay, we signed on thinking that we're going to have a competitor to the WWE in terms of attention and stuff like that, which I guess it is to a point, but now they've probably looked at it and gone, oh no, this is more of a niche product. This is a smaller scale product. This isn't what we were hoping we were going to get out of it as well. Like, what's WWE averages about 1.5, 1.6 million viewers.
Raw's 1.8.
Yep.
And SmackDown is more, but SmackDown's on network. So they're just available to more homes. Yeah. So it's like 2.1 was their lowest rating for like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
So,
and then you compare that to AEW, which is like, I think they usually sit around, from memory, around that 7 to 8. Well, the thing is that they were touting that they drew this massive number for, I think it was Collision this week. But when you look at it, the only reason that they drew that is because of the lead-in with the NBA. Yep. And it looked like a ski slope after. Like when you looked at the thing, it just went like... So that brought up the average. When they came in on that, brought up the average for the whole show. 100%. And if you've sold the goods on, it's going to be like an equivalent to the competitor, and it's not even doing 50% of the competitors. It's like, okay, well, are we paying less than 50% of what the other mob gets paid?
Yeah.
Because if you're paying 75% of what the other mob gets paid, and you're only getting 50% of the or 40 or 50% of the performance, you'd be like, oh, that's wasting money. And unfortunately, we live in a time now. In the Monday Night Wars, Ted Turner would have thrown money at wrestling because like competition and stuff like that. Now it's like there's so much out there that
so much choice,
and not just for the consumer but also for the platform as well. It's like, and I think eventually the idea is like maybe AEW's thing is AEW might have to go onto a platform of their own. Or they might have to, like, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but, like, maybe that's the thing. Because their audience, like, they've got their production people, they've got everything seems to be in-house, like, they can deliver the product. Maybe it's a thing where they just cut the middleman out and go straight to the consumer.
Yeah. See, I don't know how profitable that is, though. Like, I don't know how profitable the network was for WWE. Because they were quite happy to sell it off as soon as they got the chance.
Yes. And I also think, well... I don't think it was necessarily a thing that was not profitable. I think it's just when the uptick in the interest happened that, okay, we're making a small profit on this or we can make a really big profit on that. We can always go back to the network later on.
Yeah, that's fair.
And obviously now they got the Netflix thing. I guess they're not going to have to worry about that for a while. So
No, that's for sure. It's going to be interesting to see if, like... Because once they take over with Netflix, it's going to be good. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the Peacock contract comes up. Whether all of that then goes over to Netflix. Like, they go, oh, you liked all this stuff? How about this extra stuff? And then... Because then we might see something where we have to pay for a WrestleMania or something like that.
100%. But then it's also the thing as well, is if the prices aren't stupid...
They're still going to pay it.
The other thing... The prices aren't stupid, and if you give people that, like, I would have paid, like, if we had the old school days of Main Event on Foxtel, I would have paid for WrestleMania this year. because it felt like something worth paying for.
Yeah,
I couldn't have
yeah.
said that a few years ago.
No.
And unfortunately, I think that's what's the thing that hurts AEW. I think is they'll do something like amazing on the pay-per-view, but then they'll do something just like that. Like there's no peaks and valleys. It's all just like trying to maintain, like, oh, it's all up here, it's all up here, it's all up here. But
Yeah.
that can't be sustained either.
Yeah, that was my saying for the longest time. Was just like on a fucking Wednesday.
Yeah.
You had this amazing match and it was on a fucking Wednesday.
Well, the Wednesday's not too bad if it's on the Saturday with on fucking Collision.
Collision.
Like, with like 300,000 people watching it. Yeah, it's AEW is the thing where I want to like it so bad, and occasionally I watch it and I'm like, I watch bits and pieces. Like that Continental Classic was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
And it's like, and then Tony comes out afterwards. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to go in this direction: sports space. And then they swing into all this obsession with Punk and all this stuff. And it's like, pick a direction and go with it.
Yeah.
Like even if I don't like it, but the thing is, the people who do love it, there's obviously enough people who love it enough that between that and the Khan family fortune, they're obviously not too tight.
No.
Like,
and we'll see where it goes. I mean, there will probably be a market for their TV. It's just I don't know if it's going to be for the price that Tony wants to make up the shortfall that he's done. Because I think it was like they lost. I think it was like 35 mil last year.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. Anyway, the show is named Making Chicken Salad. So every week we look at the stuff we thought was chicken salad and the stuff we thought that was chicken shit this week. Let's start off with the chicken shit so we can end it with some sweet stuff. Mate, what was your chicken shit for this week?
I'm assuming we're going to have the same one. It is just the constant, like, oh no, we're postponing. It's like, I don't know if 5 Star, I don't know if he's based in Melbourne or if he's based in Sydney, because he's running a show in Sydney.
Apparently he's moving. That's why it's moving to Melbourne.
He's running shows in Sydney, and like he's been running shows in Sydney for years. Like some of my friends work for him. Concentrate on one. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to rubbish him and say that he's a drizzling shits or anything like that, because I've seen him wrestle. He's perfectly fine. Like, he's probably not good enough to be in the main events that he puts himself in, like with every American that he brings into Australia, but like, he's a perfectly fine wrestler and stuff like that. But I've maintained that everything might work out or things might turn to shit. But like, if people are saying buyer beware with you, then you really should be, crossing your T's and dotting your I's and not making comments about, like, know-it-alls and talking shit and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, you've got the platform to do everything right, and then for someone like me or someone like yourself who's in the industry, go, look, I told you it was going to turn out right. Look how good it turned out. You can shove it up your ass. Like,
yeah.
This whole sort of like acting like kind of macho aggressive, and then not actually doing the thing. It reeks of, like, I've maintained with him the whole time that, okay, he's run these shows for X amount of years. If he's coming into Melbourne, there are already a lot of promotions in Melbourne. And there's also a lot of there's not many venues in Melbourne, like, that will have wrestling. Because I'll tell you now, a lot of venues, if you say wrestling, they go, no thank you.
Yeah.
Adding to that pool, like, obviously he's got money to spend, he's got resources, and he's obviously
passionate. Does he though?
Well, if he does, he's got money. How much good could you do if you come into a new city and you go, hey, I'm new here, I'm going to invest my time and my effort into, again, like somewhere where we were talking about before with Relentless and Mayhem, like, I'm going to go train here, and I'm also going to offer my services and my assistance to help build this up. And then actually become part of like you're moving from Sydney to Melbourne. Okay, you become part of Melbourne as opposed to just being like, fuck it, I'm just going to do my own thing. And that's where it's like people will work for him, and his shows will probably do fine. But it's just like, do we really need another? Like, I'm not actually hobby wrestling's not fair, but like, do we need another promotion in Melbourne or in like that will draw 120 people on a Saturday night in the middle of suburbia?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we should be aiming. There's nothing wrong with that, but like, there's already like 4 or 5 promotions in Melbourne, and like 3 of them run in the northwest sort of corridor of where he's planning to run it as well. So he's going into a pretty busy market as it stands anyway. So I'd rather he like, but at the same time, prove me wrong.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing, okay? Because this started back in December, where I think he'd cancelled the show for the first time, the Femme Fatales or whatever it was called. So I put up on X. I didn't even name the promotion to start with. Everyone else named the promotion after I said it. So I just put up a tweet saying, look, if you're booked for or you're looking to get booked for a certain promotion in Melbourne or in Sydney or that's running in Melbourne, protect yourselves by either having your trans paid for or at least get flights that you can change the dates of, because this company has a history of changing its dates. So it happened again. Like he suspended it again another time in March, I think it was. Yeah, in March he suspended it again, and then he just suspended it again from May now to August. And so I just retweeted it and saying they're doing it again. Please be careful. So he decided to come out and start like calling everyone stooges and you guys don't know the real story. So I thought, hey, I'll go and find out the real story, because why not? Because why should I not want to make sure that everyone has the full story? So, like, because people, it's wrestling, so people message you left, right, and center and tell you what's going on, even though you don't know it. Because I don't follow this guy. I could give a shit, really, to be honest with you. I just care that other people might get affected by his dumb shit. It's why the original reason for the tweet. So, I found out that apparently he wants to knock me out, which is funny to me, because I've seen the guy live and he couldn't knock the froth off a cappuccino, so I'm not really worried about that. B, he's like, these guys don't even know the real reasons. The real reason I didn't do it is because I got screwed around with my work, so I don't have the money to do it. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the money to do it, don't fucking start promoting it in the first place.
Yeah.
Already have your nut ready to go to promote something before you go ahead and promote stuff. It's all good making announcements and booking matches and having stuff made for these matches and having it look great. But if you don't have the money to run the show and you're counting on having the money to run the show when it happens, then that's not good business. It's just not in any way, shape or form.
Well, like, my take on this as well is like, not even the flights. Like, I know a bunch of young wrestlers like this still do the standard thing that, hey, we're going to jump in a car and we're going to drive 8 hours during the night to do the show. Like, it's been part of wrestling. I've done that with friends and stuff like that. Is at the moment, what, petrol's $2.35 a litre?
Yeah, if you're lucky.
So it's like, so even if the show happens and people get down, it's like, if he runs the show and the shows go great, because, like, fuck yeah, good on him. Like, if he's giving people opportunities, I got no bugbear with stuff like that. My only thing on that is if a guy if he keeps pushing it back, I'm of the mindset as an older person compared to most people in wrestling, as we both are, unfortunately. I'd say more distinguished, I should say.
Yes.
Is the situation of, if you got someone who has a job and they say, hey, I'm taking this day off work because I'm going to go travel in the state to do this wrestling show on a Sunday or something like that, and I won't be back on work for Monday, and then you make all that up front, and then he changes the date. Well, you're the one that's left holding the bag, and that's where my thing on it is like, I wish him all the success in the world. I hope he proves me wrong. Like he's doing an all women's card that'll offer some spots for young talent. Good, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
My only thing is on it is, there's no shame in saying I want to cover my own ass, and there's no shame in going, hey, the show keeps getting pushed back. The show's something. If I agree to work with you, if I pencil in the States, especially if you're traveling from in the state or if you're traveling from regional Australia to a city, is if I agree to work with you on this date and we make this agreement, is there some sort of protection? So if I make arrangements that I'm covered. And I don't think that's being, like, to me, as an adult, that seems like if I was running an event or running a business that I'm bringing someone in to work for my business, if I brought someone in to work on my house and they travel in to my house and they get here on the day and I say, no, sorry, fallen through, I've wasted their time and I've wasted their day.
Yeah.
And not to mention the money. So that's my take on that is, I don't know the circumstances of why, but like, maybe get your ducks in a row first, and then
Exactly. All right, I have the money to run the show, and then go, okay, I've got this money aside to run the show. Let's go and run this show now.
Yes.
It's done.
Like,
it's sorted. Everything's covered for me.
Like if he's running the show in August, what's that? Like end of August, that's 4 months away.
Yeah, but he's had that since he's had like 3 times to do that too.
Yeah.
And there's another thing too, like Keanu Reviews says, like I knew the Lindsay Dorado stuff where Lindsay had to literally hold him up for money, which is terrible. That's a black eye on the whole industry, not just like him when it comes to it. But it's also the thing like, cool, you say you don't have the money to run that shit, and like that's understandable. You don't have the money to run that shit. Don't get floor seats to a fucking elimination chamber and post them on your socials.
Yes.
Like if you don't have the money to do it, but then you've got the money, you potentially put people out with their flights and that. Like because I don't know if they have, but then you're like, oh, I can't really afford the running thing. But check me out, guys. I'm on the floor here at Perth. It's awesome.
And it's like that's the whole thing of like, if you want to, in my opinion, if you make a verbal commitment that, okay, this is the date and you've agreed for people to come in. Now, obviously, my time being involved in wrestling was 15 years ago. So, like, I'm not privy to how things are negotiated now beyond what my friends who are still involved tell me. But I'm also of the mindset, and again, maybe I'm old saying this, but the idea of if you do a verbal agreement or a handshake agreement, that should your handshake should be your word. It's like, if especially nobody's getting rich off this. If people are paying their own flights, like I don't know if they get paid working from, I'm not privy to that, but like even if they do get paid, they get a pineapple for working for them or something like that. Flights of a couple of $100 or $250 for a flight, so they're losing money on this. They're doing it for the passion of it.
Yes,
is
100%.
The very least you can do is, okay, people want to support you because they're willing to take a loss to do their art and also support your business. The very least you can do, in my opinion, is not pencil stuff in publicly and or privately until you are certain that, okay, once I hit this point of no return, we're going ahead with it, and if it goes to shit, then I'll wear the consequences. But that's part of the trust agreement that you have.
Yeah, the part of running a business is that you're taking that risk on. You shouldn't pass that risk on to other people.
Well, a friend, I'm not going to name, but a friend of mine who ran shows in Melbourne for many years, always told me, because we've had discussions about local wrestling, and he said that if he did not have money to pay every single person who worked for him before a single ticket is sold, he wouldn't run a show.
Yep, and that's the way it should be. That is why I've never done it myself.
because that's a big financial risk, but that's the risk of like, and again pertaining to what I said about if he wants to be the boss, if he wants to be his name up in lights, like I'm the man in charge, then you've got to take that risk. Otherwise, support somebody who is willing to take that risk, and that way you can still be a positive member of the scene. Because the other thing pertaining to this is as well is, you mentioned the Lindsay thing is a black eye, but also if a fan goes to this show and it's just a mess, then you could have MCW or you could have PWA or you could have EPW or whatever running Riot City running 2 minutes down the road, but that person who's been burnt's going to go, nah, fuck it, I had a bad experience, I'm not going back. And that's where, like, your responsibility is not just to your talent, but also your responsibility to the scene as a whole. Like, I'm of the mindset that if you are running a show in 2024 where the standard is raised, which I have often said on social media, I think the Australian independent wrestling scene per capita is the best independent wrestling scene in the world.
Same. I think we have the strongest roster of workers anywhere in the world.
I think our standard is the best in the world. If you are contributing to that, you should be coming in and leaving, even if it's only a small improvement, you should be leaving it better than when you found it.
Yep,
and
100%.
If you're doing this just to put your name up in lights and this and that, you can't get shitty when someone like yourself, like, was it from Brisbane to Maryborough? What's that? 3 hours?
4.
Okay, so you're traveling 4 hours. You're not making, you're not coming out that you're doing it on a passion thing. That you're doing this.
Mate, if you knew the hours I work every week on this thing, with the money that I make on this thing, and I shouldn't say money I make because I just don't make money on this thing.
Yeah.
If you like, it's like having a second job. I literally have 3 jobs. I have the job that pays all my bills, which is my shoot job.
Yep.
I have this, which I work on, if not every night, every second night.
Yep.
And if I'm not doing that, I'm running or helping run Pro League or what. I just
contributing to Pro League or doing the.
I contributed to Pro League and I help run Wide Bay.
Yeah.
And by help run, that is, I make all the graphics, I write all the show write-ups, I book the show, I guide the workers, and I do all the legwork too. I do all the creative, put it that way.
And that's the thing, is like, in your position on there is, or like, the fella, what's his name, who owns Wide Bay, Anthony? Anthony,
yep.
Okay, the amount of shit that they got with Wide Bay when they ran that stream and stuff like that, and they, it had a bad reputation, but he's like, obviously people who are coming to me give a shit, so I will take that and go, okay, we'll head that way. And that's what I'm looking at on him, is like, I don't see people going, what's his name? I think 5-star Anthony, his name is. I don't see people going, fuck Anthony. Like, I hope he burns all his money and he falls on his ass. It's like, most of the criticism I've seen of his shows is, I just want it so people don't lose out. And when you've got, again, some fans who are really passionate fans and will support everything else, and then looking at this and going, oh, why is it this, why is it that, why is it this, why is it that? And it's like,
even after all of this, even after apparently he said he wants to knock me out, I'm still not going out there and going, you guys should boycott FWA. You should not go and work that place. It's terrible. I'm just telling you, like, go and work it if you want, but cover your own ass.
I'm a big advocate in life of buyer beware. Like, to me, ignorance is no excuse. Like, if it looks sus, ask the question. There's no shame in asking a question. And like I said, I hope he runs his show in August. I hope it's great. Like, there's some people that I know.
He's still running the show in May. He's just not running the girl show.
Yeah, the girl show's great. Like, the show in May. Like, I'm pretty sure some people I know are wrestling on that show. fuck yeah, and it's at a venue that's a great wrestling venue, St Mary's Band Club. I hope it's a success, mate. Fucking go great, prove it wrong. Just come back online after the show's a success and stick your finger up and go, look how great I am. But I'm also of the mindset of if it looks like a duck, it has feathers and it quacks, and it's probably a duck. And maybe that's my, like, I'm Mr. Positive about wrestling now, but I'm also, that old cynicism is still there. And the thing with it is I'm protective of a degree of wrestling in Melbourne, because if I have, like, if I say to someone, hey, this is on, come hang out, which I have done, and I've brought people to shows, like, hey, you might, like, you like WWE, you come watch this or something like that. I don't want them to have a sour experience on something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, if he wants to run dodgy shows in Sydney, that makes me sad because I have friends in Sydney, and Sydney's obviously my home, but it doesn't affect what is actively what I care about in Melbourne. If something can have a negative effect, like I spent 90 minutes, or I did most of the waffling, but like we gushed over that Mayhem show. I want to see them succeed so badly. If you come in and fly by night and you fuck it up for something like that, where those guys are, that pisses me off. Not for me, like, again, like, mate, I'm nobody from Nowheresville. I'm a guy with I am a keyboard, the definition of keyboard warrior, I guess. Like, there's a reason that fucking JXT for ages always would come up to me and go, Aussie melts. It's like, I don't know if that's meant to be a compliment or not, but whatever.
Not nowadays, but believe me, I got sledge for it. Why do you think it's my thing now?
Like, it doesn't affect me personally, but I see people who care so much and put so much in. I don't want to see them lose.
Yeah.
And if he's in a situation, like, I know he's trained and he's trained in multiple states and he's hanging this out and stuff like that, and I'm assuming he's not making money on these shows, so it's obviously a passion for him. Is my only thing on it is, if you do the wrong thing and somebody like you loses out, how would you feel if you were the person that lost out?
Yeah.
And maybe that's me being a bleeding heart, but that's
yeah.
Can't change.
Anyway, we've dribbled on too much on this. The main thing is, mate, like, especially like if you're listening to this, and you probably are, because this is what you'll do, so you can go on Twitter or Instagram or something and do your thing. Just be better. Just be better. Don't promote shows unless you have the money to promote the show. Simple as that. Let's move on to chicken salad, mate. What's something that you love this week?
So I watched a show. For anyone who has IWTV, there was a show. I mentioned a guy named Dean Rasmussen earlier, who was an influence on my taste in wrestling on the Death Valley Drive before. He's a really cool guy. Passed away. Over WrestleMania weekend, there was a show run in his memory. So if you look on IWTV, it's called Action Dean, which I watched the entire show. But there's a match on that show that I want to put over really big. Timothy Thatcher, who's a quite well-known English guy, who's in the US, done a lot of stuff, really good wrestler. He's had a series of matches with a gentleman from Canada, from Vancouver, a guy named Daniel McCarbe. They've had some ridiculously amazing matches over the last, I think, like 7 or 8 years. Daniel's 40, he's retiring at the end of this year. This is their last match that they had, and the show itself was like a love letter to wrestling, enjoying wrestling. But the match on this was like fucking amazing. Like pro wrestling as a sport, but also like storytelling. Like, it felt like something that could have been from 1960 as it would be as much now. Like, it felt like, it could have been an NWA title match, or it could be in something in 2024. Daniel's wrestling on a lot of shows that are on Fight, on IWTV. Some stuff's getting posted on YouTube. He's one of those guys who's been around the independent wrestling scene for about 22, 23 years. And he's a guy who does it on the Passion Project. And a lot of his stuff's getting posted online. And this show was really, really good. So if anyone's got an IWTV subscription, yeah, I got the Ken calendars. Every horse has a fucking. Check it out, and like check him out on YouTube. Like he's a really cool dude on social media, and like he's hanging up the boots. I think in September this year. So if you see any of his stuff online, check it out and seek this match out. Like I won't give any spoils on it, but like if you like wrestling that is aggressive, that's violent, that has storytelling to it, it's really, really good stuff, and it's something that like I could recommend WWE or I could recommend Aussie wrestling or stuff like that. 99% of the people watching this will know what we're talking about. That this is something where I think it's a bit of a gem, and something people might find some joy out of.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the exact sort of wrestling that I like too. That the wrestling where you can go, okay, that might be a little bit real in there. There might be a little bit of realness going on that one.
It's beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
All right,
look, my one is it's boring because it is what we did today. Like watching that Mayhem show was fucking great. I loved it, and not because it was amazingly polished and like great production values, and even though the production values were good, and like because it's JXT and JXT does graphic design, and so he knows what he's doing when it comes to that sort of stuff as well. But it's just the fact I love that you've got the guys coming up, and you can see all of these people that are there because they just want to get better. And there's gems in every match that you watch. There wasn't one match you watch where you go, oh, both of these guys are the shits. None of that. They're like invariably on a card or two, you see a match on the card. Go, oh, these guys are the shits. I don't know what I'm doing. I better go and get a beer for this one. None of that on this show. There was and that tag team match is the type of match that I love because it's that old school. Like it took me back to like 1990, 1991, like WCW TV.
Yep.
That sort of a match. I love those matches. Those matches with like Arn and when it was the Dangerously Alliance, Arn and Bobby against like the wild-eyed Southern boys and like all of that. I love that stuff. And like so I urge you guys, if you haven't watched it, go on YouTube, Mayhem Pro, look up MayhemMania, look up any of their shows because they're all it's a young group of guys and girls that are just wanting to get better at wrestling, and they're doing really, really well. Their fundamentals are great, and you can see them slowly progress over these shows, putting stuff together. So that to me is just that tells me that Aussie wrestling's fucking great.
100%.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I know it's a boring thing, but it is what it is, mate. I'm going to just quickly read Alex Fireheart's. Alex Fireheart said their chicken salad is thought about recently that I've heard of 4 or 5 wrestlers, mostly from Japan, retiring over the past year, and all of them were instances of calling a day on their own terms rather than being forced by injury or illness. Would be nice to hear about that sort of thing more often. Yep, that's 100% correct.
100%,
yeah.
Yep. All right. Well,
that's
we've
good.
gone an awful long time.
We have gone a long time. That's what happens when two people that love wrestling start talking about wrestling. Nick, is there anywhere that you want people to follow you if they want to hear more of your views about wrestling?
No, like honestly, like most of the people watching this show probably already do follow me anyway.
Yeah, but there are people that are on that listen to the show. This is the thing. It's a podcast as well, my friend. 10 years, get around it.
That's my 40s show. No, like if you want to follow me, it's NJ Gallia on most socials. But like instead of following me, like follow your local scene. Like it doesn't thrive unless you're like they can put on the shows, but it's at the end of the day you need to be like they need you just as much. So like, they need an audience. So it's like, and it's even a thing of like go check out your local vet. Even in the situation like with FWA, if FWA runs this show in Victoria, even regardless of what Todd and I have said, if you see something on the show and you think, hey, that's good, fuck it, go check it out. Because worst case scenario, you'll go to the show, hey, I didn't like it. You've lost one night. So be it. You made a decision. But like, support, like, not everything's going to be to your taste. Not everything's going to be the way you want it. But like, you might find what you like. And don't be, if you're a fan of wrestling in this country, like, don't be a slave to, I only support this one, or I only support that one, like, or like this whole tribalism shit in wrestling fans. Been there, done that. It's not fun. Like a bit of this, like a bit of that, like what you like. And my last thing, and I'll get off my soapbox. We're obviously all smarky people, either watching the show or the two of us talking in it. If you meet somebody who's new to this, which, you know, a lot of shows there is, don't be a gatekeeping dick. Like, I'd never understood the idea of, I like this so much that I don't want anyone else to like it. If you love something, fucking share it. Like, go, hey, this is amazing. I really dig this. I dig this to the point that I spend my fucking time talking about it, or I go and spend money on it, or I go and train, or I do this. I care about it so much. I want to see how much I enjoy it. And just because, you know, if your fandom is someone like me who has been watching wrestling since I was a kid and been going to local shows for 22, 23 years, or you're somebody who's going to their first local show and all you've ever watched is you've seen WWE on TV and you checked out wrestling 2 months ago and you're brand new to it. This whole idea of, I'm a better fan, is bullshit. And nobody's build a scene. Like, the scene only survives if people keep coming into it.
100%. You can follow us, or you can follow me at Beast Eastman on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. Wrestle Radio AU is the handle for us everywhere. What was that?
Okay, Elon Musk. Side note.
Where was it? You made me lose control. We're on Twitch. We're on thing. Subscribe. Give the little ding-a-ling so you know when we're up. We'll be back next week, probably talking about Backlash. I have an idea about maybe us doing I haven't talked to the boys yet about this, so if they're listening, this will probably be the first time they hear about it. I have an idea about us doing an Australian wrestling draft, so we might do that next week. So, who knows? So, until then, Nick, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It would have been me just blathering to myself for an hour or so. So this is much more palatable for people out there. I guarantee you.
Well, yeah, maybe not the visuals, but maybe the audio. So
until next time.
Welcoming into your project as well. Thank you.
Anytime you want, mate. You have an open door policy here. Todd Eastman, Nick Galea. We'll see you next week, people.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does.